Hello and welcome to Harry Fictional Hub, your home for amazing stories. Today's story is what if Gringotts revealed Harry was the owner of Diagon Alley and he banned the order from every shop. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't already. We post new stories regularly. Let's get started. Chapter 1, Legacy revealed. The July heat pressed down on Diagon Alley like a physical weight. Harry Potter, nearly 17, wiped sweat from his brow as he navigated the crowded thoroughfare. Witches and wizards bustled around him, many casting furtive glances his way. The Daily Prophet's latest headlines had once again thrust him into unwanted spotlight following Dumbledore's funeral. The chosen one, he muttered bitterly under his breath, sidestepping a cluster of young children pressed against the window of quality Quidditch supplies. Harry hunched his shoulders and quickened his pace. The white marble edifice of Gringotts loomed ahead, gleaming in the summer sun. He'd received an unusually formal letter from the bank 3 days ago, requesting his presence for what they called standard inheritance proceedings. After consulting with Hermione, who insisted it was normal for wizards approaching their majority, Harry had reluctantly agreed to come alone. "Just business, Harry," she'd said with that matter-of-fact tone she reserved for explaining wizarding customs. "The goblins will assess any properties or vaults that might activate on your birthday. It happens for everyone." As Harry approached the burnished bronze doors, the uniformed goblin guard gave him a surprisingly deep bow. Harry nodded awkwardly in return, momentarily taken aback by the unusual display of respect. The entrance hall felt noticeably quieter as he entered, conversations dropping to whispers as he passed. "Mr. Potter." A goblin materialized at his side, shorter than most, with intelligent eyes and a particularly sharp set of teeth. "Right on time. I am Nagnok. Please, follow me." Instead of leading him to the teller counters, Nagnok guided Harry through an unmarked side door into a corridor he'd never seen before. The stone walls were lined with tapestries depicting goblin warriors and what appeared to be land treaties with wizards from centuries past. "Am I in trouble?" Harry asked, half joking. Nagnok's expression remained impassive. "Quite the contrary, Mr. Potter. Today may prove quite illuminating for you." They stopped before an imposing ebony door inlaid with silver runes. Nagnok pressed his palm against it, and the door swung inward silently. The office beyond was spacious and richly appointed, with shelves of leather-bound ledgers and a massive desk carved from a single piece of dark wood. Behind it sat an ancient-looking goblin whose wrinkled face and silver-white hair spoke of great age. "Director Ragnok," Nagnok announced with a bow. "Harry Potter, as requested." Harry's eyebrows shot up. "Director?" He'd never heard of goblins having directors. "Mr. Potter." The elderly goblin's voice was surprisingly strong. "I am Ragnok, director of Gringotts. Please, be seated." Harry lowered himself into the offered chair, feeling increasingly confused. "I was told this was about standard inheritance proceedings." A thin smile crossed Ragnok's face. "There is nothing standard about your inheritance, Mr. Potter. That was merely a convenient explanation." "I don't understand," Harry said, tension creeping into his shoulders. Ragnok steepled his long fingers. "What do you know about the founding of Diagon Alley, Mr. Potter?" The abrupt change of subject caught Harry off guard. Not much. It's been here for centuries, hasn't it?" "Indeed. Established in 1347 by 3 founding families who pooled their resources to create a magical marketplace independent from Muggle London." Ragnok opened a ledger that appeared on his desk with a snap of his fingers. "The Diagons, who gave the alley its name, the Gringotts, who established this bank, and—" He fixed Harry with a penetrating stare. "The Peverils." Harry blinked. "Peverils? As in the Deathly Hallows Peverils?" Ragnok's eyebrows rose fractionally. "You are familiar with that particular legend?" "Interesting. Yes, the same family, though their business ventures are less widely known than their mythological associations." "What does this have to do with me?" Harry asked, though a suspicion was already forming. The Peveril line did not end, Mr. Potter. It continued through various branches, one of which merged with the Potter family in the late 15th century. Ragnarok turned the ledger toward Harry. According to our records, you are the last living descendant of Ignotus Peveril through the Potter line. Harry stared at the family tree displayed on the yellowed page, tracing the line from Ignotus down through the centuries until it reached his own name at the bottom. This still doesn't explain why I'm here, Harry said, though his mouth had gone dry. Ragnarok closed the ledger and opened another. The founding families established a complex ownership structure for Diagon Alley. The Diagons controlled the physical layout and expansion rights. The Gringotts, naturally, managed the financial aspects. The Peverils. He paused, fixing Harry with that penetrating stare again. The Peverils held ownership of the land itself and all structures built upon it. A heavy silence filled the room. Are you saying? Harry couldn't even finish the sentence. The Diagon line died out in 1752. Their rights reverted to the remaining founding families. The Gringott family transferred their rights to the Goblin Nation in 1865 as part of the Third Goblin Accord. Ragnarok tapped a long finger on the open page. But the Peveril rights, which passed to the Potter family, were never relinquished or transferred. Harry's head was spinning. So my family owns all of Diagon Alley, Ragnarok confirmed. Every shop, every building, every cobblestone. While business owners hold their individual titles, you, Mr. Potter, are effectively the landlord of the entire magical district. Harry slumped back in his chair. This couldn't be real. If his family owned Diagon Alley, why had no one ever told him? Why had he spent his childhood in hand-me-downs and cupboards when his family possessed what must be an enormous fortune in property? There must be some mistake, he managed. If my father owned all this, surely someone would have mentioned it. Ragnarok exchanged a glance with Nagnok. That, Mr. Potter, is where matters become complicated. Your grandfather, Fleamont Potter, was fully aware of the family's ownership rights and actively managed the properties. Upon his death, your father inherited everything, but he was barely 20 years old and preoccupied with the war against Voldemort. So he didn't know? Harry asked. Oh, he knew, Ragnarok said grimly. But upon your parents going into hiding, certain arrangements were made. What kind of arrangements? Harry's voice had hardened. Ragnarok removed a sealed parchment from his desk drawer. Shortly before your parents' deaths, Albus Dumbledore came to Gringotts with your father. James Potter signed a document placing all Potter assets, including the Diagon Alley ownership rights, under magical stewardship until you reached adulthood. And who was this steward? Harry asked, though he already knew the answer. Albus Dumbledore. A cold weight settled in Harry's stomach. One more secret. One more piece of his life that Dumbledore had controlled without ever telling him. Why am I only hearing about this now? Dumbledore is. Harry swallowed hard. Dumbledore died weeks ago. The stewardship agreement had specific triggers for revelation, Ragnarok explained. Your approaching majority is one. The death of the steward is another. With both conditions now met, Gringotts is legally obligated to inform you of your inheritance. And if Dumbledore hadn't died? Ragnarok's expression darkened. The agreement would have kept you ignorant until your 17th birthday, at which point you would have been informed, but the stewardship would have continued until you turned 25 unless you specifically contested it. Harry's hands clenched into fists. He never intended for me to know. So it would seem, Ragnarok agreed neutrally. I want to see everything, Harry said suddenly, sitting up straight. Every document, every agreement, every property. I want to know exactly what I own and how it's been managed all these years. Nagnok smiled for the first time, revealing those sharp teeth. That's exactly what we hoped you'd say, Mr. Potter. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of parchment, ledgers, and magical contracts. Harry learned that the Potter family collected a percentage of revenue from every business in Diagon Alley, funds that had been accumulating in a separate vault he'd never been told about. The amount made his trust fund look like pocket change. "What's been happening to that money?" Harry demanded. "Who's been managing it?" Ragnarok produced another document. According to the stewardship agreement, Dumbledore was authorized to direct these funds toward the greater good, as defined by his discretion. Harry's blood boiled. Meaning what, exactly? A significant portion was transferred to a Gringotts account under the name Order of the Phoenix on a monthly basis, Nagnok explained, consulting a ledger. Other disbursements went to various individuals, primarily Order members. Individuals? Who? Harry's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Ragnarok listed names Harry recognized all too well: Molly and Arthur Weasley, Remus Lupin, Nymphadora Tonks, Alastor Moody, and several others. Not enormous sums, but regular payments nonetheless. "They've been getting paid," Harry whispered. "All this time, they've been getting paid from my family's money, and no one ever told me." "There's more," Ragnarok said gravely. "Each property in Diagon Alley operates under a magical lease that must be renewed every 7 years. As owner, you have the right to review, modify, or even terminate these leases at your discretion." Harry's head snapped up. "Every shop?" "Every shop," Ragnarok confirmed. "From Ollivanders to the Leaky Cauldron. All operate under your family's authority." A new thought struck Harry. "What about Nocturne Alley?" Ragnarok smiled grimly. "A clever question, Mr. Potter. Nocturne Alley was originally a service road for Diagon merchants. Over time, it developed its unique character. But yes, it falls under the same ownership structure." Harry sat back, mind racing with implications. He owned the places where every magical child bought their first wand, where families purchased their school supplies, where the entire wizarding economy of Britain functioned day to day. And Dumbledore had hidden it from him. "There's something else you should know," Nagnok interjected. "Word of your meeting here today has already reached the Ministry. We've received 3 inquiries in the past hour from officials demanding information about your accounts." Harry's expression darkened. "They have no right." "Correct," Ragnarok agreed. "But they will attempt to contest your claim. The Ministry has grown accustomed to exercising authority over Diagon Alley in the absence of the rightful owner. They will not relinquish that influence easily." "Let them try," Harry said coldly. "What do I need to do to formally claim my inheritance?" Ragnarok's expression shifted to something almost like respect. "The formal inheritance ritual requires blood verification and magical acknowledgement. It is, not without risk, particularly given how long the properties have been under stewardship rather than direct ownership." "What kind of risk?" "Diagon Alley's founding magic is ancient and complex. It may test you in ways we cannot predict. Are you certain you wish to proceed today?" Harry didn't hesitate. "Yes." As they prepared to leave for the ritual chamber, a sharp knock came at the door. Nagnok opened it to reveal another goblin looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Director, there are Ministry officials in the main hall demanding to see Mr. Potter. They claim it's regarding irregularities in his accounts." Ragnarok's face hardened. "Inform them that Mr. Potter is in a private meeting regarding his inheritance, as is his right. Gringotts does not acknowledge Ministry authority over client accounts." "They're rather insistent, sir," the goblin replied. "Dolores Umbridge is leading them." Harry's jaw clenched at the name. Of course it would be her. "I'll handle this," he said, standing abruptly. "Mr. Potter, the inheritance ritual," Ragnarok began. "We'll wait 10 minutes while I deal with this interruption," Harry finished firmly. "I want to see what they think they're doing here." Ragnarok studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Nagnok will escort you to the main hall. I shall prepare the ritual chamber." Harry followed Nagnok back through the marble corridors, his mind racing. How had the ministry learned of his meeting so quickly? Who had informed them? And what did they hope to achieve by interfering? The answers became clearer as he emerged into the main hall of Gringotts. Dolores Umbridge stood in the center, surrounded by 4 ministry officials in formal robes. Her pink cardigan seemed even more offensive against the dignified backdrop of the bank. "Demand to see him immediately," she was saying to a stone-faced goblin teller. "This is a matter of ministry security." "What exactly is a matter of ministry security, Madam Umbridge?" Harry asked loudly, stepping forward. Umbridge whirled around, her toad-like face contorting into a sickeningly sweet smile. "Ah, Mr. Potter. There you are. We've received concerning intelligence about unauthorized access to restricted Potter family assets. The ministry is merely conducting its due diligence to protect your interests." Harry felt every eye in the bank turn toward them. Customers and goblins alike were watching the confrontation unfold. "Interesting," Harry said coolly. "I wasn't aware the ministry had any authority over Gringotts account matters." "We certainly do when it involves properties vital to Wizarding Britain's infrastructure," Umbridge replied, her voice honeyed but her eyes cold. "Certain rumors have reached us that you may be attempting to claim ownership rights that have long been considered public domain." "Considered by whom?" Harry challenged. "The Potter family has never relinquished ownership of Diagon Alley. The fact that my parents' appointed steward chose to keep that information from me doesn't change the legal reality." Murmurs swept through the gathered crowd. Many were now openly staring, some whispering frantically to their companions. "This is precisely why we must intervene," Umbridge said, her voice rising slightly. "Such extraordinary claims require thorough ministry investigation before any precipitous actions are taken. I have here," she withdrew an official-looking document, "a temporary injunction against any inheritance rituals or property transfers pending full review by the Department of Magical Property Rights." "A department that doesn't exist," Nagnok said coldly from Harry's side. "And a document with no legal standing within these walls." Umbridge's face flushed. "Now see here." "No," Harry interrupted. "You see here, Madam Umbridge. You have no authority over my family's assets. You have no authority within Gringotts. And very soon, you may find you have no authority within Diagon Alley itself." The whispers grew louder. Harry became aware that several reporters had somehow materialized among the onlookers, quills scratching frantically. Umbridge's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Mr. Potter, this attitude only confirms the ministry's concerns about your judgment. Perhaps your experiences last year have left you unstable. Minister Scrimgeour will be most distressed to hear of your uncooperative stance on a matter of national security." "Feel free to tell him," Harry replied. "In fact, tell him I'd be happy to discuss the matter, after I've completed my inheritance ritual and reviewed exactly how my family's properties have been managed during my minority." "That ritual will not proceed today," Umbridge declared, turning to the officials beside her. "Secure the bank exits. No one leaves until," she never finished the sentence. With a sharp snap, every goblin in the hall drew a short, wickedly sharp blade. The sound of metal clearing leather echoed throughout the marble chamber. "Madam Umbridge," came Ragnarok's voice as the director emerged from a side corridor. "You have precisely 30 seconds to remove yourself and your associates from this bank before you are forcibly escorted out, in accordance with the Treaty of 1752 that grants Gringotts sovereignty within its walls." The ministry officials paled. Even Umbridge seemed to recognize she'd overstepped. "This matter is not concluded, Mr. Potter," she hissed. "The ministry will not allow a 17-year-old boy to hold hostage the economic center of Wizarding Britain on a dubious inheritance claim." Harry stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. "It wasn't dubious when Dumbledore was controlling it, was it? Funny how it only becomes a problem when I want what's rightfully mine." Something flashed in Umbridge's eyes, confirmation, Harry realized. She'd known. Perhaps not everything, but she'd known about Dumbledore's stewardship. "We're leaving," she announced to her colleagues, gathering her dignity. But be assured, Mr. Potter, this matter will be addressed at the highest levels. I look forward to it, Harry replied coldly. As Umbridge and her entourage departed, the bank remained silent for several long seconds. Then, gradually, the normal sounds of business resumed, though many customers continued to stare at Harry with expressions ranging from awe to calculation. Nagnock cleared his throat. The ritual chamber is prepared, Mr. Potter. If you'll follow me. Harry nodded, suddenly aware that he had just publicly committed himself to a path he couldn't easily reverse. Whatever happened next, the wizarding world would be watching. The ritual chamber lay deep beneath Gringotts, accessible only by a particularly wild cart ride that plunged deeper than Harry had ever gone before. The temperature dropped noticeably as they descended, until their breath clouded in the air before them. The deepest vaults and most significant rituals are conducted at this level, Nagnock explained as they disembarked. The natural magic of the earth is strongest here. The chamber itself was circular, with walls of unworked stone that glittered with veins of some silvery mineral. 7 crystal pillars formed a smaller circle in the center, surrounding a raised stone platform carved with intricate runes. Ragnarok awaited them, now dressed in ceremonial robes of deep crimson with gold embroidery. 6 other elderly goblins stood at intervals around the chamber, each holding what appeared to be ancient ledgers. The Inheritance Council, Nagnock murmured to Harry. They witness and record all major property transfers. Their presence here indicates the significance of your claim. Harry approached Ragnarok, who motioned him toward the central platform. Stand there, Mr. Potter. The ritual is simple but profound. You will place 7 drops of blood upon the keystone, he indicated a small, white stone embedded in the platform, and state your claim to the properties of Diagon Alley as heir to the Peveril Potter line. And then? Ragnarok's expression grew solemn. Then the magic will either accept or reject your claim. If accepted, you will feel the connection to the properties establish itself. If rejected. He hesitated. What happens if I'm rejected? Harry pressed. Such an event is rare, but potentially dangerous, Ragnarok admitted. The magical backlash could be significant. Harry took a deep breath. Let's proceed. As he stepped onto the platform, Harry felt a subtle vibration through the soles of his feet, as if the stone itself were humming with anticipation. Ragnarok handed him a small, silver dagger with a handle carved from what appeared to be white bone. 7 drops, no more, no less, the director instructed. Then speak your claim from the heart, not just the mind. Harry positioned the blade above his palm, then hesitated. Wait. Before we begin, I need to know something. Why would Dumbledore hide this from me? What possible reason could he have? Ragnarok exchanged glances with the council members. One of them, a particularly ancient goblin with milky eyes, spoke in a rasping voice. Power, Mr. Potter. Control. The one who controls Diagon Alley influences the very heart of magical Britain. Perhaps your headmaster believed such power should remain in his experienced hands rather than pass to a child. Or perhaps, another council member suggested, he feared what changes might come should the rightful heir assert control after generations of neglect. Harry considered this, thinking of all the secrets Dumbledore had kept from him over the years. Always for his own good, always for the greater good. Never trusting Harry to make his own choices. No more, Harry said quietly. Then, with a swift motion, he drew the blade across his palm. 7 drops of blood fell upon the white keystone, each one spreading and sinking into the stone as if absorbed by a sponge. The keystone began to glow with a soft, golden light that rapidly intensified. Harry raised his uninjured hand and spoke clearly, I, Harry James Potter, claim my rightful inheritance as heir to the Peveril Potter line. I claim ownership of all properties and rights within Diagon Alley granted to my ancestors as founding members. This is my birthright, my legacy, and my responsibility. The golden light flared brilliantly, shooting upward in a column that engulfed Harry completely. He gasped as a sensation like electrical current flowed through his body, not painful, but intensely powerful. In his mind's eye, he suddenly saw Diagon Alley from above, every shop, every building, every winding passage laid out like a living map. He could feel them all, connected to him through threads of ancient magic, Ollivanders with its centuries of wand craft, Flourish and Blots with its towering shelves of knowledge, Gringotts itself with its deep vaults and older magics. Even the darkened shops of Nocturne Alley pulsed in his awareness, shadowy but undeniably his. The light began to coalesce, drawing inward until it centered on Harry's chest directly over his heart. With a final pulse of brightness, it sank beneath his skin, leaving a faint, golden glow that slowly faded. The chamber fell silent except for Harry's ragged breathing. The council members were staring at him with expressions of undisguised shock. What just happened? Harry managed, feeling simultaneously exhausted and energized. The magic accepted you, Ragnarok said, his voice hushed. More than accepted. It embraced you completely. Is that unusual? The milky-eyed council member stepped forward. In all my 217 years witnessing inheritance rituals, I have never seen such a complete bonding. The magic of Diagon Alley has recognized you not merely as its owner, but as its rightful guardian. Harry looked down at his hands, which still seemed to shimmer faintly with golden light when he moved them. What does that mean, exactly? It means, Ragnarok explained, that the full powers and privileges of ownership are yours to command. The very foundations of Diagon Alley will respond to your will in ways we cannot fully predict. And the ministry? Harry asked. Umbridge seemed quite determined to interfere. A cold smile spread across Ragnarok's face. The ministry has no legal standing to contest a claim that ancient magic itself has validated. They may try, of course, but their authority extends only as far as you permit it to within your domain. Harry's eyes widened slightly as the implication sank in. My domain, he repeated softly. Indeed, Mr. Potter. What you choose to do with that authority now is entirely your decision. As they returned to the main level of the bank, Harry felt different, more grounded, more aware of his surroundings. The marble walls of Gringotts seemed to whisper to him, acknowledging his presence in a way they never had before. We should discuss your immediate options, Nagnok suggested as they reached Ragnarok's office again. There will be significant interest in your claim, and it would be wise to establish your position quickly before others attempt to define it for you. Harry nodded, his mind already racing ahead. I want a complete accounting of all properties and businesses operating in Diagon and Nocturne Alleys. I need to know who owns what, how long they've been there, and what their current lease agreements entail. Ragnarok nodded approvingly. A prudent first step. That information can be compiled within days. I also want to review all financial records showing where the income from these properties has gone for the past 16 years, Harry continued, his voice hardening. Every galleon Dumbledore directed elsewhere needs to be accounted for. That may take longer, Nagnok cautioned. The stewardship agreement granted Dumbledore considerable latitude in financial matters. I don't care how long it takes, Harry insisted. I want to know who benefited from my family's assets while I was kept in the dark. As they discussed next steps, a commotion arose outside the office. Raised voices could be heard, one of them familiar to Harry. Moments later, the door burst open to reveal Remus Lupin, looking disheveled and agitated. Harry, he exclaimed, pushing past the goblin who had tried to stop him. What in Merlin's name is going on? The alley is buzzing with rumors that you've claimed ownership of, he broke off, taking in the ledger spread across Ragnarok's desk, the formal atmosphere of the meeting. Sweet Circe, it's true. Harry regarded his father's old friend coolly. Hello, Remus. Yes, it's true. I've just completed the inheritance ritual confirming my ownership of Diagon Alley through the Peveril Potter line. Lupin paled. Harry, you shouldn't have done that without consulting whom, exactly? Harry interrupted. The order. Dumbledore's portrait. The people who've been receiving monthly payments from my family's assets for years without ever mentioning it to me? Lupin flinched as if struck. Harry, it wasn't like that. Dumbledore explained. I'm sure he explained it very convincingly, Harry said, his voice cold. Just as he explained why I needed to live with the Dursleys, why he kept the prophecy from me until Sirius died, why everything in my life had to be controlled and manipulated for the greater good. The payments were stipends for Order members who had to leave their jobs to fight Voldemort, Lupin protested. Many had families, responsibilities, and that justified keeping me ignorant of my own inheritance. Harry demanded. Tell me, Remus, how much have you received over the years from the Potter accounts? Lupin's silence was answer enough. Get out, Harry said quietly. I have business to conclude with Director Ragnarok. Harry, please, you need to understand the complexities, I said get out. Harry's voice cracked like a whip, and to his astonishment, the very floor beneath Lupin's feet trembled. The werewolf staggered backward, shock written across his features. The magic responds to your emotions now, Ragnarok observed after Lupin had been escorted out. An interesting development. You will need to practice control. Harry took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. I want to visit the alley tomorrow. I need to see my properties firsthand, speak with some of the shop owners. A wise decision, Ragnarok agreed. But be prepared, news of your claim will have spread widely by then. You may face resistance from those who benefited from the previous arrangement. Harry's expression hardened. Let them resist. It's time they learned what it means to lie to Harry Potter. As he left Gringotts hours later, the sun was setting over Diagon Alley, painting the shop fronts in gold and amber. Harry paused at the top of the marble steps, looking out over the bustling marketplace. His marketplace, he realized with a mixture of awe and determination. For the first time, he noticed subtle details he'd overlooked before, the way certain shops seemed to complement each other, how the magic of the place flowed in currents and eddies through the winding street. He could feel it all now, connected to him through the ritual's ancient bond. Shoppers hurried past, many casting curious glances his way. News traveled fast in the magical world, and by morning, everyone would know of his claim. Harry wondered how the Order would react, what steps the Ministry might take to challenge him. Let them try, he thought grimly. For too long, others had controlled his life, his legacy, even his own family's history. No more. As darkness fell, Harry Potter, the new master of Diagon Alley, disappeared with a crack of apparition, leaving behind a street that somehow seemed more alive, more aware than it had been in generations. Watching from the shadows of Nocturne Alley, a hooded figure observed Harry's departure with keen interest. The figure's hand moved to touch an ancient amulet half hidden beneath heavy robes, an amulet bearing the same symbol Harry had seen in the ritual chamber. So the heir returns at last, the figure murmured. Now we shall see if he is worthy of what truly lies beneath Diagon Alley. Chapter 2, Rights of Ownership. Harry woke before dawn, his mind already racing with plans. Sleep had come fitfully, interrupted by dreams of endless corridors lined with shops, each door whispering as he passed. He could still feel the connection to Diagon Alley thrumming beneath his skin, a constant awareness like the steady beat of a second heart. Morning light filtered through the curtains of his room at the Leaky Cauldron. After leaving Gringotts, he'd decided to stay here rather than return to the Dursleys or the Burrow. Tom had given him an odd look when he requested a room, but asked no questions. Harry dressed quickly and stood at the window, watching the first shopkeepers arrive to open their businesses. Each triggered a small pulse in his awareness, like a tap on the shoulder, letting him know someone had entered a building he owned. It was simultaneously exhilarating and overwhelming. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Breakfast, Mr. Potter," called Tom's gravelly voice. "Thought you might want it here rather than downstairs. Bit of a crowd gathering already." Harry opened the door to find the innkeeper balancing a heavily laden tray. "Crowd?" Tom nodded gravely as he set down the tray. "News travels fast. Half the reporters in Britain are downstairs hoping to catch sight of the landlord, as they're calling you now. Wonderful, Harry muttered, though he wasn't particularly surprised. Thanks for the warning, Tom. The innkeeper hesitated, then asked, Is it true, then? You own the whole alley? Harry looked at Tom, really looked at him for perhaps the first time. The man had been running the leaky cauldron for as long as Harry had known of the magical world, yet he'd never considered how long Tom had been there or what he might know. Yes, Harry confirmed. Through my family line. How long have you run this place, Tom? 43 years next month, Tom answered proudly. Took it over from my father, who got it from his father before him. And all that time, you've been paying rent too. Gringotts manages the collection, Tom explained. But we always knew it was the Potter estate that owned the deeds. Your grandfather Fleamont was a fair landlord, came by regular, knew everyone by name. When he passed, then your dad, well, things changed with the war and all. Harry's eyebrows rose. You knew. All this time? Tom looked surprised. Most of the older shop owners know, Mr. Potter. Didn't think it was our place to tell you if your guardians hadn't. His rheumy eyes narrowed. Though some of us wondered why you never came around to inspect the properties after you returned to our world. A surge of anger flashed through Harry. More people who'd known about his inheritance but said nothing. But Tom wasn't to blame, he reminded himself. The man was just a shopkeeper doing his job. I only found out yesterday, Harry said quietly. It seems there was a stewardship agreement keeping me in the dark. Tom's eyes widened. Merlin's beard, he breathed. That explains a few things. Like what? Harry asked sharply. Tom fidgeted uncomfortably. Just, changes in how things were run. Rent increases for some shops, exemptions for others. New regulations about who could open businesses where. He shrugged. We assumed it was you or your guardian making the decisions. Harry's jaw clenched. I'll be looking into all of that. Starting today. After breakfast, Harry slipped out through a service entrance Tom showed him, avoiding the crowd in the pub. The morning air was cool as he stepped into Diagon Alley proper, the cobblestones still damp from an earlier cleaning charm. He could feel it more strongly now, the ancient magic of the place recognizing his presence. The very stones seemed to hum beneath his feet as he walked, and he noticed how the morning light caught the buildings in ways he'd never appreciated before, highlighting architectural details that suddenly seemed significant. Harry had a specific destination in mind. Flourish and Blots wasn't yet open to the public, but he could see movement inside. He rapped firmly on the door. A middle-aged wizard with spectacles peered out, frowning until he recognized Harry. His expression transformed to one of surprise, then understanding. Mr. Potter. Of course, please come in. He unlocked the door with a tap of his wand. Marcus Flourish, at your service. We weren't expecting you so early. Harry stepped inside, inhaling the familiar scent of parchment and binding glue. Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Flourish. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all. Not at all. Flourish gestured toward the back of the shop. Perhaps we could speak in my office. More private. The office was cramped but cozy, lined with rare editions and publishing memorabilia. Flourish conjured tea with a flick of his wand. I assume this isn't just a social call, he said, studying Harry carefully. No, Harry confirmed. I'm visiting key businesses today to introduce myself properly as the owner of Diagon Alley. I have questions about how things have been managed during the stewardship. Flourish's expression grew serious. I see. Well, you've come to the right place. The Flourish family has kept detailed records of our dealings with the Potters since 1584. I'd like to see those records, Harry said. Particularly anything from after my parents died. Flourish hesitated only briefly before retrieving a leather-bound ledger from a locked drawer. This contains all correspondence regarding our lease and special arrangements for the past 20 years. Harry opened the ledger and began to read. What he found made his blood boil. According to the records, Flourish and Blotz had been subjected to a substantial rent increase in 1982, shortly after his parents' deaths. The justification cited was wartime recovery fees. But that wasn't what angered Harry. It was the attached note from Dumbledore, written on Hogwarts letterhead. I regret the necessity of this increase, but assure you it serves an essential purpose. A portion of these funds will ensure that certain texts remain accessible to Hogwarts students regardless of their financial circumstances. The remainder will support our ongoing efforts against any resurgence of dark forces. Albus Dumbledore, Steward of Potter Properties. Flourish watched Harry's face darken. We didn't question it at the time. It was just after the war, and everyone was making sacrifices. And this? Harry asked, pointing to another document from 1991, the year he'd started at Hogwarts. Ah, Flourish said uncomfortably. The book list arrangement. The document outlined a complex agreement requiring Flourish and Blotz to stock specific titles for the Hogwarts book list, many written by Order members or their associates, in exchange for a partial rent reduction. Did you ever wonder why Defense Against the Dark Arts textbooks changed every year? Flourish asked quietly. Or why Lockhart's entire collection was required for all students? Harry stared at the bookseller. You're saying Dumbledore used his control over my property to force you to stock books that benefited his friends? Flourish spread his hands. Publishing is a complicated business, Mr. Potter. An author with a guaranteed spot on the Hogwarts list can command substantial advances and royalties. And who received those royalties? Harry demanded. Various people over the years. Lockhart, obviously. Lupin had a supplementary text that did quite well the year he taught. Several others connected to the Order of the Phoenix. Harry closed the ledger with controlled fury. Thank you for showing me this, Mr. Flourish. What happens now? The bookseller asked nervously. Harry considered the question. I'll need time to review all the lease agreements. But I can tell you this, I have no intention of continuing the stewardship's practices. You'll be dealing directly with me from now on. Relief washed over Flourish's face. That would be most welcome, Mr. Potter. As Harry prepared to leave, Flourish hesitated, then said, There's something else you should know. Not everyone will be as forthcoming as I've been. Some businesses have benefited enormously from the stewardship arrangements. Such as Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, for one. Their lease terms are unusually favorable. Harry froze. What do you mean? They pay no rent at all, Flourish said simply. Their lease agreement states they operate under the direct patronage of the Potter estate. Harry's mind raced. Fred and George had told him they'd used his Triwizard winnings as startup capital, but they'd never mentioned free premises. Had they known? Had their parents? Thank you for the information, Harry said, his voice carefully neutral. I'll look into it. The rest of the morning followed a similar pattern. Harry visited Madame Malkin's, Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, and several other shops, examining records and speaking with owners. The picture that emerged was troubling. Dumbledore had systematically used control of Diagon Alley to reward allies and punish those who opposed him. By midday, Harry needed a break. His head throbbed with suppressed anger and the constant awareness of the alley's magic. He found a quiet corner in a small cafe he'd never noticed before, ordered tea, and tried to organize his thoughts. Might I join you? Harry looked up to find an elderly witch with shrewd eyes and silver hair pulled into an elegant knot. Something about her seemed vaguely familiar, though he was certain they'd never met. I'm rather busy, he began. I'm sure you are, Mr. Potter, she replied, seating herself despite his reluctance. My name is Madame Adelia Greengrass. I own Verdant Apothecary in the north end of the alley. Harry searched his memory. I don't think I've visited your shop. Few Hogwarts students do, she acknowledged. We cater to master potioneers and healers, not schoolchildren. Snape gets his supplies from us, though he'd never admit it. Harry's interest was piqued despite himself. Why did you want to speak with me, Madam Greengrass? Her direct gaze reminded him uncomfortably of Professor McGonagall. Because you're about to make important decisions that will affect all of us, and you're doing so with incomplete information. I'm gathering information as quickly as I can, Harry defended. Yes, but selectively, she countered. You're visiting the shops you're familiar with, speaking to people you're comfortable with. There's an entire side to Diagon Alley you've never experienced. Harry bristled. If you're talking about Knockturn Alley, I'm talking about the businesses that have been systematically marginalized under Dumbledore's stewardship, she interrupted. Not all of them dark or disreputable, merely inconvenient to his worldview. This gave Harry pause. What do you mean? Madam Greengrass leaned forward. Did you know that until 1982, Diagon Alley hosted the largest independent magical research institute in Britain? It was disbanded under Dumbledore's stewardship, its premises divided among his supporters. Why would he do that? Harry asked. Because they were researching magical theory that contradicted his positions, she replied simply. Including extensive work on family magic and blood protections, research that might have offered alternatives to your placement with Muggle relatives. Harry felt as if he'd been struck. That's a serious accusation. It's a historical fact, she corrected. One of many you should be aware of before deciding who deserves your favor as the new landlord. Before Harry could respond, a commotion arose near the cafe entrance. Voices raised in argument, then a familiar figure burst through the door, Arthur Weasley, looking harried and distressed. Harry, he exclaimed upon spotting him. Thank goodness. We've been searching everywhere for you. Madam Greengrass rose smoothly. We'll continue our discussion another time, Mr. Potter. My shop is open to you whenever you wish to learn more. With a dignified nod, she departed, leaving Harry facing an increasingly uncomfortable-looking Arthur. What's going on, Mr. Weasley? Harry asked, not inviting the man to sit. Arthur shifted his weight from foot to foot. Harry, there's an emergency order meeting. Minerva sent me to find you, it's about this Diagon Alley situation. Everyone's quite concerned. I imagine they are, Harry replied coolly. Concerned about what, exactly? That I've discovered how Order members have been profiting from my family's assets for years. Arthur paled. Harry, that's not, you don't understand the complexities. I understand perfectly well, Harry cut him off. I've spent the morning reviewing lease agreements and financial records. Would you like to explain why your son's shop pays no rent while other businesses have been charged war recovery fees for over a decade? The twins don't know about that arrangement, Arthur said quickly. Dumbledore handled it all. He said it was in recognition of your investment in their business, that you'd approved it. When exactly would I have approved it? Harry demanded. I was never told I owned the property. Arthur's face crumpled. We thought you knew, Harry. At least about the ownership, if not the details. Dumbledore assured us you were being prepared to take over the estate when you came of age. Well, he lied, Harry said flatly. To all of us, apparently. A tense silence fell between them. Finally, Arthur spoke again, his voice subdued. Will you at least come to the meeting? Hear what everyone has to say. There are explanations for much of what you've discovered. Harry considered refusing, but realized this might be his opportunity to confront the Order directly. Fine. Where is it? Grimmauld Place. In an hour. Harry nodded curtly. I'll be there. But Mr. Weasley, he fixed the older man with a hard stare. I'm coming to listen, not to be convinced to hand control back to the Order. Arthur nodded sadly. I understand, Harry. After Arthur left, Harry paid for his tea and stepped back into the alley. The afternoon crowds had grown, and he noticed people pointing and whispering as he passed. News of his ownership had clearly spread. As he walked, a small magical pulse caught his attention, different from the shop awareness he'd been feeling all day. He paused, focusing on the sensation. It seemed to be coming from beneath his feet. Harry knelt, placing his palm flat against the cobblestones. The pulse grew stronger, a rhythmic thrumming that resonated with the magic he'd absorbed during the inheritance ritual. Without consciously deciding to do so, he whispered, "Show me." The cobblestone beneath his hand glowed softly, then shifted, revealing a small, tarnished metal disc embedded in the ground. It bore the same symbol he'd seen in the ritual chamber, a triangle containing a circle bisected by a line. "The Deathly Hallows," Harry murmured, recognizing it now from the symbol Luna's father had worn at Bill's wedding. As his fingers brushed the disc, a shiver of magic ran up his arm, and suddenly he could see, or rather, sense, dozens of similar markers throughout Diagon Alley, forming a complex pattern beneath the street. "Curious, isn't it?" came a voice from behind him. Harry whirled to find a hooded figure standing nearby, the same one who had watched him from the shadows the previous evening. "Who are you?" Harry demanded, his hand moving to his wand. The figure raised both hands in a placating gesture. "A caretaker, of sorts. One who has waited a long time for the true heir to return." "You're the one who's been following me," Harry accused. Observing, the figure corrected. "There is a difference." With deliberate movements, the stranger lowered their hood, revealing a woman of indeterminate age. Her hair was silver white, but her face showed few wrinkles. Her eyes, however, held the weight of many years. "My name is Perenelle," she said simply. Harry stared in disbelief. "Perenelle? Flamel? Nicholas Flamel's wife?" A small smile touched her lips. "The same. Though I haven't used that name publicly in some time." "But you're supposed to be dead," Harry blurted. "After the Philosopher's Stone was destroyed, Nicholas passed on," she acknowledged. "I chose to remain, for reasons that concern you directly." Harry's mind raced. "What do you mean? What do you know about these markers?" "They are anchor points for the protective wards of Diagon Alley," she explained. "Placed by the founding families, including your ancestor, Ignotus Peveril." She gestured around them. "This is not merely a shopping district, Mr. Potter. It is one of the oldest continuously maintained magical sites in Britain, built upon foundations that predate the ministry itself." Harry absorbed this, connecting it to the sensation he'd felt during the inheritance ritual. "And what does this have to do with me?" "Everything," Perenelle said simply. "The magic recognized you yesterday, not just as heir to the property rights, but as blood of Peveril. It has begun to awaken after centuries of dormancy." Dumbledore knew, Harry realized. That's why he kept me away, why he maintained the stewardship even after I returned to the magical world. Perenelle nodded. Albus feared power he couldn't control. The old magic of this place answers only to the true heir. Even as steward, he could never access its deeper aspects. Before Harry could ask more questions, the clock of Gringotts chimed the half-hour. The order meeting would begin soon. "I have to go," he said reluctantly. "Of course," Perenelle replied. "But remember this as you face them, the Order of the Phoenix exists to serve Dumbledore's vision, not yours. They will seek to regain control of what they've lost." "And you?" Harry asked. "What do you want?" Her ancient eyes held his. "For the heir to claim his full inheritance, not just the property deeds. When you're ready to learn more, seek me at the terminus of the pattern you now see. The oldest shop in Nocturne Alley." With that, she replaced her hood and melted into the crowd, leaving Harry with far more questions than answers. Grimmauld Place looked exactly as Harry remembered it, grim and forbidding despite the summer sunshine. As he approached the door, he felt a curious sensation. The wards recognized him differently now, acknowledging not just his right to enter but his connection to deeper magics. The door opened before he could knock, revealing Hermione with a worried expression. "Harry," she exclaimed, pulling him into a fierce hug. "Where have you been? We've been so worried." "I've been busy," he replied, gently disentangling himself. "Learning about my inheritance." Her expression grew complicated. "Yes, well, that's what this meeting is about. Everyone's in the kitchen." As they descended the stairs, the murmur of voices grew louder, then abruptly ceased as Harry entered the room. Around the long kitchen table sat the core members of the Order of the Phoenix: McGonagall, Moody, Tonks, Lupin, the elder Weasleys, Kingsley Shacklebolt, and several others. Ron and Ginny sat near their parents, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Potter," McGonagall began, her Scottish brogue more pronounced than usual, indicating stress. "Thank you for joining us. We have much to discuss." Harry remained standing just inside the doorway. "Yes, we do, Professor. Starting with why the Order felt entitled to profit from my family's assets while keeping me completely in the dark about my inheritance." A tense silence followed his accusation. Several members exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Harry," Lupin began, his voice placating, "you must understand that everything was done according to your parents' wishes. The stewardship arrangement was supposed to end when I turned 17, Harry interrupted. "Instead, Dumbledore built in extensions that could have kept me ignorant for years longer if Gringotts hadn't informed me. For your protection, Molly Weasley insisted. You know who would have targeted you even more directly if he knew you controlled Diagon Alley. And the financial benefits to Order members?" Harry challenged. "Was that for my protection too?" Moody's magical eye fixed on Harry while his normal one narrowed. "Those were operational funds, Potter. Fighting a war costs galleons. And what about the lease manipulations?" Harry pressed. "Forcing shop owners to stock books written by Order members. Charging higher rents to businesses that didn't support Dumbledore's positions. Shutting down a magical research institute that might have found alternatives to my living with the Dursleys." This last accusation caused several gasps. McGonagall turned to Moody with a shocked expression. "Alastair? Is this true?" Moody's grizzled face remained impassive. "We did what was necessary, Minerva. The Institute was exploring magic Dumbledore considered dangerous: blood wards, family protections, inheritance magic. After what happened to the Potters, he couldn't risk that knowledge spreading." "Couldn't risk it helping me, you mean," Harry said coldly. "Because it might have interfered with his plans for the boy who lived." Kingsley Shacklebolt cleared his throat. "Harry, regardless of past actions, we must focus on the present situation. Your claim to Diagon Alley has created significant instability. The Ministry is in an uproar, and Voldemort will certainly move to exploit this development. So I should just hand control back to the Order?" Harry asked incredulously. "After everything I've learned?" "We're suggesting a transitional arrangement," McGonagall said carefully. "Allow us to help you manage these responsibilities while you complete your education and focus on the more immediate threat of Voldemort." Harry almost laughed. "Another stewardship, in other words. Just with a different name." "Harry, mate," Ron interjected, looking desperately uncomfortable. "No one's trying to take anything from you. But this is a lot for anyone to handle, especially with everything else going on." "Ron's right," Hermione added. "You need advisors, Harry. People with experience. Like the people in this room?" Harry asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "The same people who've been lying to me for years?" "We have not lied to you, Mr. Potter," McGonagall said stiffly. "Lies of omission are still lies, Professor," Harry countered. "Not one of you ever mentioned that my family owned Diagon Alley. Not one of you questioned why a supposedly wealthy, landowning family's heir was wearing hand-me-downs and had no knowledge of his inheritance." Uncomfortable silence fell again. "What exactly do you intend to do with this newfound power, Potter?" Moody demanded abruptly. "You're disrupting operations at a critical time in the war effort." Harry's eyes narrowed. "What operations, exactly?" The ones funded by skimming profits from my properties. Moody slammed his fist on the table. Don't be naive, boy. Where do you think the money comes from for safe houses, intelligence gathering, medical supplies? The ministry barely acknowledges Voldemort's return, they certainly aren't funding resistance efforts. Then you should have told me, Harry shot back. Asked me directly if I would support the Order financially. Instead, you all kept me ignorant while helping yourselves to my family's legacy. And what will you do now, Harry? Arthur asked quietly. Now that you know. All eyes turned to Harry, waiting for his answer. He took a moment to study each face around the table, people he had trusted, respected, even loved. Now he saw them differently, as adults who had chosen to keep him in the dark, who had prioritized Dumbledore's plans over Harry's right to know his own history. I'm going to review every lease, every financial arrangement, every decision made in my name, Harry said firmly. I'm going to speak with every shop owner in Diagon and Nocturne alleys. And then I'm going to decide who deserves to continue operating under my family's protection. You can't possibly manage all that alone, Lupin protested. And alienating the Order now, when Voldemort is gaining strength. I didn't alienate the Order, Harry interrupted coldly. You did that yourselves when you chose to follow Dumbledore's instructions rather than tell me the truth. Harry, please, Ginny spoke up for the first time, her voice soft. We're still your friends. Your family. Whatever mistakes were made, we can work through them together. For a moment, Harry's resolve wavered. He looked at the Weasleys, at Hermione, people who had taken him in, supported him, fought beside him. Had they truly known about his inheritance? Or had they been manipulated by Dumbledore too? But then his eyes fell on Moody, whose unrepentant expression told him everything he needed to know. At least some members of the Order had been fully aware of the situation and had chosen to keep him in the dark. I need time, Harry said finally. Time to sort through everything I've learned and decide what happens next. There is another matter, McGonagall said carefully. The Ministry has convened an emergency session of the Wizengamot for tomorrow morning. They're challenging your claim to Diagon Alley on grounds of public interest. Harry wasn't surprised. Let them try. Gringotts has already confirmed my ownership rights, and the magic itself has acknowledged me as the rightful heir. The Ministry doesn't recognize Goblin authority in matters of magical property, Kingsley pointed out. They'll argue that Diagon Alley is too important to Wizarding Britain to be controlled by a private individual. Especially one who has been openly critical of the current administration, Tonks added. Harry considered this. Then I'll need legal representation. The Order can provide, Lupin began. No, Harry cut him off. I'll find my own representation, thank you. People I can trust to represent my interests, not the Order's. Moody's expression darkened. You're making a mistake, Potter. There are aspects to this situation you don't understand. Then enlighten me, Harry challenged. Not here, Moody growled, his magical eyes swiveling to scan the room. Too many ears. Harry shook his head in disbelief. Still with the secrets and half-truths. I'm done with it, Moody. All of it. He turned to leave. Potter. Moody barked. Walk out that door now, and the Order will have no choice but to take official action regarding Diagon Alley. Harry paused, turning back slowly. Is that a threat, Professor Moody? It's reality, Moody replied harshly. Diagon Alley is too strategically important. If you won't cooperate with the Order's security measures, we'll be forced to implement them without your consent. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. When Harry spoke, his voice was dangerously soft. You will do no such thing. Diagon Alley belongs to me, not to the Order, not to the Ministry, and certainly not to you, Moody. Don't be a fool, boy. Moody snarled, rising from his seat. This is bigger than your hurt feelings about Dumbledore's decisions. The war effort doesn't justify stealing from me, Harry snapped. Or lying to me. Or treating me like a child who can't be trusted with his own inheritance. Several order members began talking at once, some trying to placate Harry, others backing Moody's position. The kitchen descended into chaos until McGonagall's amplified voice cut through the din. Enough. Silence fell immediately. McGonagall fixed each person with a stern glare before turning to Harry. Mr. Potter, while I understand your frustration, I must urge you to consider the broader implications of your actions. Diagon Alley's security affects hundreds of magical citizens. Some level of coordination with the Order is essential during these dangerous times. Harry met her gaze steadily. I agree that security is important, Professor. But the Order has lost my trust. If you want any role in Diagon Alley going forward, you'll need to earn it back. And how do you propose we do that? She asked. Start by telling me the truth, all of it. No more convenient omissions, no more, for your own good. I want complete transparency about how my family's assets have been used for the past 16 years. McGonagall glanced at Moody, who shook his head slightly. Her lips thinned to a tight line. Some of that information remains classified for the protection of our operations, she said reluctantly. Harry nodded as if he'd expected this answer. Then we have nothing more to discuss. He turned again to leave. You can't just walk away from this, Potter. Moody shouted after him. If you won't listen to reason, we'll do what needs to be done, with or without your permission. Harry paused at the doorway, a cold clarity settling over him. He had given them a chance, offered them a path to reconciliation. They had chosen secrecy instead. Try to interfere with my property, he said without turning around, and you'll find that Diagon Alley itself will resist you. The magic knows its true master now. He felt it as he spoke, the connection to the ancient wards thrumming beneath his skin, responding to his resolve. It wasn't a bluff or empty threat, he knew, somehow, that the alley would indeed protect itself against unauthorized interference. Without waiting for a response, Harry left, ignoring Hermione's calls to come back. His mind was made up. If the Order wouldn't respect his ownership rights, he would have to take more decisive action. Outside, the summer evening was warm, but Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. He had just broken with people who had been his strongest allies. What would that mean for the fight against Voldemort? But he couldn't ignore what he'd learned. Couldn't pretend that years of manipulation and deception didn't matter. Some betrayals cut too deep to simply forgive and forget. As he walked, a plan began to form in his mind. If Moody was serious about the Order taking action in Diagon Alley against his wishes, Harry would need to act first. He needed allies of his own, people who weren't beholden to Dumbledore's legacy or the Order's agenda. His feet carried him back toward Diagon Alley, drawn by the magical connection he now felt with the place. As he walked, he reached a decision. If the Order wouldn't respect his authority, he would have to demonstrate it in a way they couldn't ignore. The alley was quieter now, most shops closed for the evening. A few late customers lingered at the restaurants and pubs, but the main thoroughfare was largely deserted. Harry could feel the pulse of the place more clearly without the daytime crowds, the steady heartbeat of old magic flowing through the cobblestones beneath his feet. He made his way to the north end of the alley, where Madame Greengrass had said her apothecary was located. To his surprise, a light still burned in the window despite the late hour. When he knocked, the door opened immediately, as if he'd been expected. Mr. Potter, Madame Greengrass greeted him. I thought you might return this evening. Harry stepped inside, taking in the immaculate shelves of ingredients and preparations. Unlike Slug and Jiggers, which catered to students and everyday potion needs, this establishment clearly served a more specialized clientele. Crystal vials containing shimmering substances lined one wall, while another displayed what appeared to be rare botanical specimens preserved under stasis charms. You said earlier that you could provide me with information about businesses marginalized under Dumbledore's stewardship, Harry said without preamble. I'd like to hear more. Madame Greengrass gestured toward a sitting area in the back of the shop. Would you also like to know about the ministry's plans for tomorrow's Gringotts session? Or perhaps Moody's intention to place order members in key positions throughout the alley, regardless of your wishes? Harry stared at her. How do you know about those things? A slight smile curved her lips. Diagon Alley has its own information network, Mr. Potter. Those of us who have operated here for generations have learned to keep ourselves informed. As they sat, a house elf appeared with tea service. Harry noted that the creature wore a neat uniform rather than the pillowcases he was accustomed to seeing. First, you should know that I am not alone in welcoming your return as the rightful owner, Madame Greengrass began. Many of the older establishments have chafed under Dumbledore's stewardship, which increasingly favored his allies and political agenda. Like the research institute you mentioned, Harry prompted. She nodded. The Magical Innovation Consortium. Founded in 1723 by a group of independent researchers who believed magical theory should advance beyond ministry-approved curricula. They made significant breakthroughs in healing magic, warding, and the interaction between family magics and protective enchantments. And Dumbledore shut them down. Strategically, she confirmed. First by tripling their rent, then by pressuring suppliers not to sell them rare ingredients, and finally by having the ministry investigate them for alleged dark magic research. By 1983, they had disbanded, their properties divided among new businesses more aligned with Dumbledore's interests. Why? Harry asked. What was he afraid of? Madame Greengrass studied him thoughtfully. Have you not wondered why, in a world of magic, you had to endure those Muggle relatives of yours? Why no magical guardian stepped forward after your parents' deaths? Dumbledore said it was because of blood wards, Harry replied. My mother's sacrifice created protection that only worked with her blood relative, my aunt. A convenient explanation, she noted. But the consortium was researching alternative forms of blood protection that didn't require abusive living situations. Their work suggested that magical guardianship, properly established with the right rituals, could provide equal protection without condemning a child to a loveless home. Harry felt a cold weight in his stomach. You're saying Dumbledore deliberately suppressed research that could have given me a different childhood? That's a serious accusation. Yes. But the evidence exists in the consortium's archived research, if you know where to look. And you do. I was a junior researcher there before it was disbanded, she confirmed. Many of us continued our work privately, though with limited resources and constant ministry interference. Harry's mind raced with implications. If what she said was true, it represented an even deeper betrayal than he'd imagined. Not just financial exploitation, but a deliberate effort to ensure Harry remained isolated, dependent, and ignorant of his heritage. The Gringotts session tomorrow, he said, changing tack. What do you know about it? They plan to invoke an obscure statute from the 1700s that allows the ministry to claim property rights in cases of critical magical infrastructure, when the legitimate owner is deemed incapable of proper stewardship. On what grounds could they possibly claim I'm incapable? Harry demanded. Your age. Your erratic behavior regarding the ministry's handling of Voldemort's return. Your lack of formal education in property management. She shrugged. They don't need strong grounds, just enough to create doubt while they maneuver to take control. Harry's jaw clenched. And Moody? What exactly is he planning? The order has already approached several shop owners about hosting security personnel, beginning tomorrow. Ostensibly to protect against Death Eater attacks, but effectively establishing order control over key areas of the alley. Without my permission, Harry noted, anger rising. Indeed. She sipped her tea calmly. So the question becomes, Mr. Potter, what do you intend to do about it? Harry stared into his teacup, watching the leaves swirl. Both the ministry and the order were moving to undermine his authority, to seize control of his inheritance through manipulation and legal maneuvering. If he waited, reacted defensively, he would be fighting an uphill battle. He needed to act first. Decisively. I need to speak with Gringotts tonight, he said suddenly. Is Director Ragnarok still available at this hour? For the owner of Diagon Alley? Certainly. Madame Greengrass gestured to the fireplace. You may use my flue. The connection to the director's private office is Ragnarok's domain. Harry raised an eyebrow at this privileged access, but didn't comment. Thank you for the information, Madame Greengrass. I have one more question before I go. Yes. Why are you helping me? What do you stand to gain? Her expression grew serious. Some of us have waited a long time for the true heir to return, Mr. Potter. Dumbledore's stewardship was never meant to become a decades-long regency, yet he used it to reshape Diagon Alley according to his vision of the greater good, a vision that excluded many ancient and valuable magical traditions. She leaned forward slightly. I help you because I believe in the balance of magic, not light or dark as artificial constructs, but the natural flow of power that has sustained our world for millennia. Dumbledore disrupted that balance. You have an opportunity to restore it. Harry nodded slowly, sensing there was more to her explanation than she was revealing, but accepting it for now. He stood and moved toward the fireplace. We'll speak again, Madame Greengrass. Thank you for your candor. One last piece of advice, Mr. Potter, she said as he took a handful of flue powder. The oldest shops in Diagon Alley contain more than merchandise. They are anchor points for the district's protective magics. If you truly wish to assert control, start there. Harry committed this to memory, then threw the powder into the flames. Ragnarok's domain. The world spun in green fire, depositing him in a richly appointed office different from the one he'd visited the day before. This room was smaller, more personal, with artifacts and treasures displayed on shelves along the walls. Director Ragnarok sat behind a desk of polished obsidian, apparently unsurprised by Harry's arrival. Mr. Potter. I wondered when you might call. Events move quickly, do they not? Harry brushed soot from his robes. Too quickly. I need your help, Director. The Ministry plans to challenge my ownership rights tomorrow, and the Order of the Phoenix is attempting to establish unauthorized security operations throughout the alley. Ragnarok's expression remained impassive, but his eyes gleamed with interest. And what would you have Gringotts do about these encroachments? First, I need legal representation for the Wisengamot hearing. Someone who isn't connected to either the Order or the Ministry. That can be arranged. We maintain relationships with several independent magical law practitioners who specialize in inheritance disputes. Good. Harry paced the office, formulating his plan. Second, I need to know if there's a way for me to restrict access to Diagon Alley, specifically, to bar certain individuals from entering the shops. Now Ragnarok's eyebrows rose fractionally. You are contemplating a ban? If necessary, Harry confirmed. The Order has made it clear they intend to operate in Diagon Alley with or without my permission. I need to demonstrate that such actions have consequences. The Goblin Director steepled his fingers. As the recognized owner, you do have the right to implement such restrictions. The founding magic includes provisions for excluding those who threaten the alley's integrity. How would it work? A ritual, performed at the central ward stone beneath Gringotts. You would need to be specific about who is banned and from where. Ragnarok studied Harry carefully. This is not a step to be taken lightly, Mr. Potter. A ban powered by the founding magic would be magically binding and difficult to reverse. Harry nodded grimly. I understand. But I need to make it clear that Diagon Alley is no longer under Dumbledore's control, or the Order's. If they won't respect my authority, I'll have to enforce it. Very well. Ragnarok stood. The ward stone chamber can be prepared immediately. While that is done, we should discuss the specifics of your ban. Who exactly do you wish to exclude, and from which premises? Harry considered carefully. He didn't want to punish everyone associated with the Order. Some, like the Weasley children, had likely been kept as ignorant as he was. But the core members, those who had knowingly benefited from his family's assets while keeping him in the dark. The adult members of the Order of the Phoenix, he decided. Specifically those who served during Dumbledore's leadership and had knowledge of the stewardship arrangement. I want them banned from entering any shop or business in Diagon and Nocturne alleys. Not from the streets themselves. Ragnarok clarified. No, Harry decided. They can walk the streets, but they can't conduct business. No shopping, no banking, no services. Ragnarok nodded slowly. A significant statement, but one within your rights to make. The Ward Stone Chamber will be ready shortly. In the meantime, let us discuss your legal representation for tomorrow's hearing. While they waited, Ragnarok introduced Harry via magical communication to Demetrius Burke, a formidable-looking wizard whose family had practiced magical law for generations. Despite sharing a surname with the co-founder of Borgin and Burke's, he explained he was from a different branch of the family that had specialized in property law since the 1600s. The ministry's case is built on sand, Burke assured Harry. They're invoking the Critical Magical Infrastructure Act of 1749, which has been used exactly twice in history, both times during Goblin rebellions when Diagon Alley was directly under attack. So they can't win? Harry asked. They can certainly delay and complicate matters, Burke cautioned. But with both Gringotts and the founding magic acknowledging your claim, their legal position is extremely weak. Leave the Wisengamot to me, Mr. Potter. I've been waiting decades for a chance to remind them of the limits of their authority over privately held magical properties. By the time they concluded their conversation, a goblin messenger had arrived to inform them that the Ward Stone Chamber was prepared. Ragnarok led Harry deeper into Gringotts than he had ever been before, down spiraling staircases carved directly into the bedrock beneath London. Few wizards have ever seen what you are about to witness, Ragnarok told him as they descended. The central Ward Stone of Diagon Alley is one of Britain's oldest continuously active magical artifacts. It predates not only Gringotts, but the ministry itself. They passed through a series of increasingly complex security measures, magical barriers that assessed Harry's intent, goblin guards with ancient weapons, and finally a door that required both Ragnarok's blood and Harry's to open. Beyond lay a perfectly circular chamber hewn from living rock. In its center stood a rough-hewn monolith of dark stone veined with gold and silver. Runes covered its surface, some familiar to Harry from ancient runes class, others utterly alien. The heart of Diagon Alley, Ragnarok said reverently. Placed here by the founding families to anchor the protective magics and establish the boundaries of the district. Harry approached slowly, feeling the stone's magic reaching out to him, recognizing him, as it had during the inheritance ritual. Without prompting, he placed his palm against the cool surface. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. He could feel every shop, every building, every corner of Diagon Alley pulsing in his awareness. Beneath that, older magic flowed, protective wards, boundary markers, and something deeper still that he couldn't quite grasp. What do I need to do? He asked, his voice hushed. A goblin priestess stepped forward, her robes adorned with symbols matching those on the Ward Stone. State your intent clearly while maintaining contact with the stone. Name those you wish to exclude and from where. The magic will do the rest. Harry took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. This was a drastic step, one that would burn bridges with people who had once been his strongest supporters. But after today's confrontation, after learning how they had exploited his inheritance while keeping him ignorant, he could see no alternative. I, Harry James Potter, rightful heir to the Peveril Potter line and owner of Diagon Alley, declare that the following individuals are banned from entering any shop, business, or service establishment within Diagon and Nocturne alleys. The Ward Stone pulsed beneath his hand, golden light spreading through its veins. Alastor Moody, Minerva McGonagall, Remus Lupin, Nymphadora Tonks, Kingsley Shacklebolt, Molly Weasley, Arthur Weasley, and any adult who knowingly participated in the Order of the Phoenix under Albus Dumbledore's leadership while aware of the stewardship arrangement regarding my family's properties. The stone flared brighter, the light now spreading to the floor around it in an intricate pattern. This ban excludes those who were kept ignorant of the arrangement, including students and junior order members who joined after my parents' deaths. It does not prevent those named from walking the streets of the alleys, but forbids them from conducting any business or receiving any services within the district's boundaries. The light had now reached the walls of the chamber, illuminating the runes carved there. This restriction shall remain in force until I personally lift it, or until those banned acknowledge their deception and make full restitution for the misuse of my family's assets. With these final words, the golden light flashed blindingly bright, then shot upward through the ceiling in a pillar of magical energy. Harry felt a wave of power surge through him and outward, racing along the magical connections to every shop in Diagon and nocturne alleys. He knew, somehow, that the ban had taken effect instantly, that across the district, magical barriers had just activated that would prevent order members from entering any business establishment. "It is done," the goblin priestess intoned. "The alley has heard and obeyed its master's command." Harry withdrew his hand from the stone, feeling simultaneously drained and invigorated. "Thank you for your assistance," he said to Ragnarok and the priestess. "I know this is an unusual request." "Not so unusual as you might think," Ragnarok replied. The founding families instituted similar bans several times in the alley's early history, typically against those who threatened its independence from external control. As they made their way back to the upper levels of the bank, Harry contemplated what he had just done. By morning, the entire wizarding world would know that Harry Potter had banned the Order of the Phoenix from Diagon Alley. The political repercussions would be enormous. But he couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. The Order had made their choice when they decided to keep him ignorant of his inheritance, to profit from his family's assets while leaving him in the dark. Actions had consequences. It was time they learned that. Outside Gringotts, Diagon Alley lay quiet under the stars. Harry stood on the marble steps, looking out over his domain with new eyes. For the first time since learning of his inheritance, he felt a sense of purpose beyond anger at the deception he had suffered. This place was his responsibility now, not just the properties and businesses, but the magic itself, the ancient protections laid down by his ancestors. Whatever came next, he would face it not as the boy who lived or Dumbledore's protégé, but as Harry Potter, heir to the Peveril legacy and rightful guardian of Diagon Alley. As if in response to this resolution, the cobblestones beneath his feet gleamed momentarily with golden light, the same light that had sealed his ban. The alley itself was acknowledging his decision, his authority. Harry descended the steps and walked slowly down the main thoroughfare, his footsteps echoing in the night silence. Tomorrow would bring challenges, the Wisengamot hearing, the Order's reaction to the ban, perhaps even Voldemort's response to this shift in power. But tonight, for the first time in his life, Harry felt truly connected to his family's legacy. Not just through his mother's sacrifice or his father's appearance, but through the ancient magic of a place that had recognized him as its rightful heir. As he passed Ollivander's, the wand-maker stepped out from his shop, as if he'd been waiting for Harry to pass. "A momentous night, Mr. Potter," the old man said, his silvery eyes reflecting the starlight. "The alley has not felt such a definitive exercise of ownership in generations." Harry paused. "You felt it?" "All the old shops did," Ollivander confirmed. "Those of us connected to the founding magic sensed your declaration. A bold step, banning the Order of the Phoenix." "They left me no choice," Harry replied. "They made it clear they wouldn't respect my authority." Ollivander nodded slowly. "Choices and consequences. The rhythm of power and responsibility." He gestured toward his shop. "Would you care to come in for a moment? There's something I believe you should see." Curious, Harry followed the wand-maker into his shop. Instead of stopping in the familiar front room with its thousands of boxed wands, Ollivander led him through a door in the back that Harry had never noticed before. Beyond lay a small, circular chamber reminiscent of the ward stone room beneath Gringotts, though on a much smaller scale. At its center stood a pedestal bearing a single wand unlike any Harry had seen before, longer than standard, with a dark wood grain that seemed to shift and flow like liquid shadow. "This," Ollivander said quietly, "is the Peveril wand. Not Death's creation of legend, but a wand-maker's tribute crafted for Gringotts after he settled here. It has remained in this chamber since his passing, waiting for an heir worthy of its power. Harry stared at the wand, feeling a pull toward it unlike even his first connection with his phoenix feather wand. Why show me this now? Because the alley has accepted you completely, Mr. Potter. More completely than any heir in living memory. Ollivander gestured to the wand. This is not merely a magical tool, but a key to deeper aspects of your inheritance. When you are ready, it will serve you, and reveal secrets of this place that have been hidden for centuries. Harry reached toward the wand, then hesitated. I already have a wand that chose me. Ollivander smiled enigmatically. Indeed you do, a remarkable wand with its own destiny. This would not replace it, but complement it. A second wand, for the second aspect of your magical identity. Is that even allowed? Having two wands? For ordinary wizards, it would be unusual. For the master of Diagon Alley, it is a tradition as old as the district itself. Ollivander stepped back. You need not decide tonight. The wand will wait until you feel ready to claim it. Harry withdrew his hand, sensing the truth in Ollivander's words. He had much to learn about his inheritance, about the responsibilities that came with it. The wand, like many aspects of his newfound legacy, would wait until he had grown into his role. Thank you for showing me this, he said. I'll return when the time is right. Ollivander nodded approvingly. A mature decision, Mr. Potter. Now, you should rest. Tomorrow will bring many challenges, and Diagon Alley will need its guardian alert and prepared. As Harry finally made his way back to his room at the Leaky Cauldron, the weight of the day's events settled upon him. He had discovered betrayal from those he trusted most, confronted the Order of the Phoenix, enacted a magical ban unprecedented in recent history, and glimpsed deeper aspects of his inheritance that he had never imagined. Yet despite the turmoil, he felt an unfamiliar sense of clarity. For perhaps the first time since entering the wizarding world, he had taken full control of his own destiny, made decisions based on his own judgment rather than Dumbledore's manipulations or others' expectations. Whatever came next, the Ministry's challenge, the Order's response, even Voldemort's inevitable interest in this development, he would face it on his own terms, as the rightful heir to Diagon Alley and all the power that entailed. With that resolve firmly in mind, Harry Potter, master of the oldest magical district in Britain, finally allowed himself to rest, ready for the battle that would surely come with the dawn. Chapter 3, Alley's Reformation. The morning light filtered through the window of Harry's room at the Leaky Cauldron, finding him already awake and dressed. He'd slept surprisingly well despite the magnitude of what he'd done the previous night. The ban on the Order was now in effect, and soon the entire wizarding world would know. He stood at the window, watching Diagon Alley come to life below. Shopkeepers unlocked doors, set out displays, and prepared for the day's business. None of them yet realized how dramatically things had changed overnight. A soft knock at his door broke his reverie. Mr. Potter. Tom's voice called. There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Harry tensed, hand moving to his wand. Who is it? Demetrius Burke, your legal counsel, came the reply. Harry relaxed slightly and opened the door. Tom stood aside to reveal a tall, distinguished wizard in immaculate charcoal robes. Despite being well into his 60s, Burke carried himself with the vigor of a much younger man. Mr. Potter, Burke said, offering his hand. I thought it prudent to meet before the Wisengamot hearing. Particularly given the developments overnight. Harry shook the man's hand, noting his firm grip and direct gaze. You've heard about the ban already? Burke's lips twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. The entire wizarding world is hearing about it as we speak. The Prophet is running a special edition. He produced a newspaper from inside his robes and handed it to Harry. The headline sprawled across the front page in dramatic type, Potter bans Order of Phoenix from Diagon Alley. Boy who lived claims ancient ownership rights, expels Dumbledore's followers. Below was a photo of Diagon Alley with an artist's rendering of magical barriers appearing at shop entrances, alongside a smaller picture of Harry from the Triwizard Tournament. That was quick, Harry remarked, scanning the article. How did they find out so fast? Magic of this magnitude creates ripples, Burke explained. When you enacted the ban, every magical sensor in the Ministry registered the search. By midnight, rumors were flying. By dawn, someone had confirmed the details. Harry set the paper aside. Will this complicate the hearing? Complicate? No. Dramatically alter? Absolutely. Burke took a seat without waiting for an invitation. The Ministry intended to challenge your ownership on the grounds that you were unqualified to manage such important magical property. Your ban demonstrates not only that your ownership is magically binding, but that you can wield its power with precision and authority. So they can't contest my claim anymore. Burke's expression grew calculating. They certainly can't win such a challenge, but that may no longer be their primary concern. Your ban has embarrassed both the Ministry and the Order of the Phoenix. They'll be looking to retaliate, perhaps by other means. Harry frowned. What kind of means? That remains to be seen. But we should proceed to the hearing prepared for anything. Burke checked an ornate pocket watch. We have 2 hours. I suggest we use them to discuss strategy and review the documentation of your inheritance. For the next hour and a half, Burke methodically guided Harry through the legal aspects of his claim, explaining precedents, potential challenges, and the strength of his position. As they worked, Harry found himself impressed by the lawyer's thoroughness and strategic thinking. There's one more thing you should be aware of, Burke said as they prepared to leave. The ban you enacted has an interesting loophole, one I suspect you created intentionally. Harry raised an eyebrow. What loophole? You banned Order members from entering shops and conducting business, but not from walking the streets. More importantly, you specified that the ban remains in effect until you personally lift it, or until those affected acknowledge their deception and make full restitution. That's right. You've provided them a path to redemption, Burke observed. Unusual in magical bans, which are typically absolute. It suggests you're not seeking revenge, but accountability. Harry hadn't fully articulated this to himself, but hearing Burke put it into words clarified his own thinking. They need to understand what they did wrong. I don't want to punish people who were just following Dumbledore's orders without knowing the full story. Burke nodded approvingly. A mature position, Mr. Potter. Now, shall we proceed to the Ministry? I believe it's time to show the Wizengamot exactly who they're dealing with. The Ministry atrium buzzed with activity as Harry and Burke arrived. Conversations halted as people noticed Harry, breaking into furious whispers as he passed. The ban had clearly become the day's sensation, overshadowing even the Wizengamot hearing. Near the security desk, they encountered the first visible evidence of the ban's effects. Kingsley Shacklebolt stood arguing with a goblin representative from Gringotts. This is absurd, Kingsley was saying, his deep voice carrying despite his attempt to keep it down. I have official Ministry business at Gringotts this afternoon. And you are officially banned from entering any business establishment in Diagon Alley, the goblin replied impassively. Including Gringotts. Your Ministry credentials do not supersede the founding magic of the district. Kingsley noticed Harry and Burke approaching, his expression hardening. Potter. We need to talk. After the hearing, Auror Shacklebolt, Burke interjected smoothly. My client has a prior engagement with the Wizengamot. This isn't over, Kingsley said to Harry, his voice low. What you've done affects more than just the Order. There are security operations, financial arrangements, international diplomatic matters, all of which could have been discussed with me directly, Harry interrupted coldly. Instead, the Order chose secrecy and attempted to seize control of my property without my consent. Before Kingsley could respond, Burke guided Harry toward the elevators. Save your arguments for the courtroom, Mr. Potter. The Wiesengemot awaits. The courtroom was packed to capacity, with reporters crowded against the back wall and ministry officials craning their necks for a better view. At the center of the chamber, a single chair faced the tiered seats of the Wiesengemot. Minister Scrimgeour occupied the chief position, his expression severe. "Quite the audience," Burke murmured as they entered. "Stay calm, speak only when addressed directly, and follow my lead." As Harry took his seat, he scanned the faces of the assembled Wiesengemot members. Some regarded him with curiosity, others with open hostility. Among them, he spotted familiar faces: Madame Bones, looking thoughtful, Dolores Umbridge, practically vibrating with malice, and several others he recognized from his previous hearing 2 years ago. Scrimgeour called the session to order, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "We convene today to address the matter of ownership claims regarding Diagon Alley, a property of vital importance to Wizarding Britain." Burke stood immediately. "If I may, Minister, there is a preliminary matter to address." Scrimgeour frowned at the interruption but nodded. "Proceed, Mr. Burke." "Thank you." Burke's voice carried effortlessly through the chamber. "This hearing was originally called to consider the Ministry's challenge to my client's ownership rights. However, events of the past 24 hours have rendered that challenge moot." Whispers broke out around the chamber. "Explain yourself," Scrimgeour demanded. Burke produced a scroll bearing the Gringotts seal. "Last evening, Mr. Potter successfully enacted a magically binding ban that restricts certain individuals from entering businesses within Diagon Alley. Such an action can only be performed by the rightful owner whose claim has been recognized by the founding magic itself." He handed the scroll to a court official, who delivered it to Scrimgeour. "This certification from Gringotts confirms that the ancient ward stone of Diagon Alley has acknowledged Harry Potter as the legitimate heir to the Peveril Potter line and rightful owner of the district." Scrimgeour scanned the document, his frown deepening. Beside him, Percy Weasley whispered urgently in his ear. "The Ministry does not recognize Gringotts' authority as definitive in matters of wizarding property," Umbridge interjected, her voice sickly sweet. "Perhaps not," Burke agreed pleasantly. "But the Ministry certainly recognizes the authority of founding magic, which predates the Ministry itself by several centuries. The Critical Magical Infrastructure Act of 1749, which forms the basis of your challenge, specifically exempts properties protected by founding family magic when that magic has actively recognized its rightful heir." He produced another document. Section 7, Paragraph 3, "No ministerial action may supersede the determination of founding magic when said magic has manifested in recognition of legitimate bloodline inheritance." The courtroom erupted in overlapping conversations as Wiesengemot members conferred with each other. Harry sat quietly, impressed by Burke's methodical dismantling of their case. Scrimgeour rapped his gavel for silence. "Mr. Potter," he said, addressing Harry directly for the first time, "are you aware of the implications of the ban you've enacted? You've restricted access for key Ministry personnel involved in security operations during a time of war." Harry stood, meeting Scrimgeour's gaze steadily. "I'm aware, Minister. I'm also aware that those same personnel conspired to keep me ignorant of my inheritance while exploiting my family's assets for their own purposes." "That's a serious accusation," Madame Bones remarked from her seat. "It is," Harry agreed. "And I have documentation from Gringotts and shop owners throughout Diagon Alley to support it. For 16 years, Albus Dumbledore served as steward of my family's properties. During that time, he directed funds to the Order of the Phoenix, manipulated lease agreements to benefit his allies, and suppressed businesses that didn't align with his agenda, all while keeping me completely unaware of my inheritance." Murmurs spread through the chamber as Harry continued. "When I discovered the truth and claimed my rightful ownership, Order members made it clear they intended to continue operating in Diagon Alley with or without my permission. The ban was my response to that infringement on my property rights." "Hem," came Umbridge's irritating interruption. "Mr. Potter seems to believe his personal grievances justify disrupting vital security operations. This only reinforces the Ministry's position that he is unfit to manage a property of such importance." Burke stepped forward again. My client has not banned ministry operations, Madam Umbridge. He has banned specific individuals who abused his trust and violated his property rights. Any ministry personnel not affiliated with the Order of the Phoenix remain free to conduct legitimate business in Diagon Alley. Furthermore, Harry added, drawing all eyes back to him, I've included a condition for lifting the ban. Any affected individual who acknowledges their deception and makes appropriate restitution will have their access restored immediately. This revelation clearly caught many by surprise. Scrimgeour leaned forward, studying Harry with new interest. You're offering terms of reconciliation. I'm offering accountability, Harry corrected. Those who profited from keeping me in the dark about my own inheritance should acknowledge what they did and make it right. A brief silence fell over the courtroom as the Wisengamot members processed this. Minister, Burke said into the silence, given that the founding magic has confirmed Mr. Potter's claim, and that he has demonstrated both the ability to manage his property and a willingness to resolve conflicts reasonably, I move that this challenge be dismissed. Scrimgeour conferred briefly with several senior Wisengamot members before addressing the chamber again. The ministry's challenge to Mr. Potter's ownership of Diagon Alley is dismissed, he announced, though his tone suggested this was far from the end of the matter. However, given the strategic importance of the district, the ministry reserves the right to monitor the situation and intervene if public safety is compromised. The ministry is welcome to monitor, Harry responded clearly. But any intervention on my property will require my consent as the legal owner. I hope that's understood, Minister. Scrimgeour's eyes narrowed at the implicit challenge, but he merely nodded. This session is adjourned. As they exited the courtroom amid a swarm of reporters and onlookers, Burke leaned close to Harry. A decisive victory, Mr. Potter, but be prepared for indirect retaliation. Scrimgeour won't take this public rebuke lightly. Let him try whatever he wants, Harry replied. I'm done being manipulated by people who claim to know what's best for me. Burke smiled thinly. Then I suggest we return to Diagon Alley. If I'm not mistaken, you have a district to reform. Diagon Alley was in a state of barely contained chaos when Harry arrived. Word of the ban and the Wisengamot hearing had spread like fiendfire, drawing crowds of curious onlookers and journalists. Shop owners stood in their doorways, watching nervously as people gathered in small groups, debating the morning's developments. Harry could feel the tension in the air, and something else, a subtle vibration in the magic of the place that responded to his presence. The alley itself seemed more alive, more aware since he had enacted the ban. What now? Harry asked Burke as they made their way through the throng. Now you must show leadership, the lawyer advised. These people, the shop owners especially, need to know what kind of landlord you intend to be. Will you continue Dumbledore's approach? Reverse it entirely? They're waiting to see. Harry nodded, understanding the importance of this moment. I should speak with them directly. All of them, not just a few select shops. A town hall meeting, perhaps. Burke suggested. The leaky cauldron has space, though it might be crowded. No, Harry said, a different idea forming. Not indoors. I want everyone to be able to attend. The street itself will be our meeting place. With Burke's assistance, Harry sent messages to every shop owner in both Diagon and Nocturne alleys, calling for a general assembly in the main thoroughfare at 3 o'clock that afternoon. In the meantime, he returned to Gringotts to meet with Ragnarok about the financial aspects of his inheritance. The ban has created quite a stir, Ragnarok observed as they reviewed ledgers in his office. Several order members attempted to access their vaults this morning, only to find themselves unable to enter the bank. Have there been any attempts to break it? Harry asked. 2, Ragnarok confirmed. Alastair Moody tried to force his way into Flourish and Blots, claiming ministry authority. The shop's wards ejected him rather forcefully. And Minerva McGonagall attempted to send a student proxy to purchase items for her, but the magic recognized the subterfuge. What happened to them? Nothing harmful, Ragnarok assured him. The magic simply prevented entry. though I understand Moody was quite perturbed about being thrown backward into a puddle. Harry couldn't help but smile at the image. Good. I don't want anyone hurt, just excluded. A reasonable position. Now, regarding your financial affairs. Ragnarok pushed forward several documents. These detail the revenue streams from all properties under your ownership. As you can see, the total is substantial. Harry's eyes widened as he scanned the figures. The monthly income from leases and percentage agreements was more than most wizards would see in a decade. And this has been accumulating since my parents died? In various accounts, yes, Ragnarok confirmed. While Dumbledore redirected significant portions to order activities and stipends, the principal investments continued to grow. Your combined holdings, including property values, make you one of the wealthiest wizards in Britain. Harry sat back, processing this information. I want to establish a new system for managing these funds. Something transparent, with proper accounting and oversight. A wise decision, Ragnarok agreed. Gringotts can implement whatever structure you prefer. By the time 3 o'clock approached, Harry had outlined a comprehensive financial management plan with Ragnarok's guidance. The plan included fair market value lease adjustments, reinvestment in alley infrastructure, and a small fund for supporting new businesses, particularly those focused on innovative magic that had been discouraged under Dumbledore's stewardship. The crowd that gathered in Diagon Alley exceeded Harry's expectations. Not just shop owners, but their employees, residents who lived in apartments above the businesses, and even curious customers had assembled to hear from the district's new landlord. Harry stood on the steps of Gringotts, looking out over the sea of faces. He spotted familiar shopkeepers, Florian Fortescue, Madame Malkin, Mr. Ollivander, alongside dozens he'd never met, including a contingent from Nocturne Alley who kept to themselves at the edge of the gathering. Thank you all for coming, Harry began, his voice magically amplified. Yesterday, I learned that my family has owned Diagon Alley for centuries. Today, I want to share with you my vision for its future. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled crowd. For too long, this district has been managed through secrecy and favoritism. Businesses that aligned with Albus Dumbledore's agenda prospered, while others struggled under unfair restrictions. That ends today. Murmurs spread through the crowd, some approving, others nervous. As the rightful owner of Diagon Alley, I pledge the following. First, all lease agreements will be reviewed and adjusted to reflect fair market value, no more preferential terms for some and punitive rates for others. Second, a portion of all revenue will be reinvested in improvements to the alley's infrastructure, security, and public spaces. This announcement drew scattered applause, particularly from the Nocturne contingent. Third, I'm establishing a fund to support new businesses and magical innovation, with priority given to research areas that have been discouraged in recent years. And fourth, Harry paused, knowing this would be controversial, I'm reopening the Magical Innovation Consortium that was shut down under Dumbledore's stewardship. Now the reaction was more divided. Many older shop owners looked shocked or concerned, while younger faces showed excitement and curiosity. I know some of you benefited from the previous arrangement, Harry continued, while others suffered under it. I'm not interested in punishing anyone for past allegiances. My goal is simply to create a fair, transparent system where all magical traditions and innovations can thrive, not just those favored by whoever holds power at the moment. He took a deep breath before addressing the obvious elephant in the room. Regarding the ban I enacted last night, yes, I have restricted Order of the Phoenix members from conducting business in Diagon and Nocturne alleys. This decision came after they made it clear they intended to operate on my property without my consent, continuing the pattern of secrecy and manipulation that kept me ignorant of my inheritance for 16 years. The crowd listened intently as Harry continued. However, the ban includes conditions for its removal. Any affected individual who acknowledges their actions and makes appropriate restitution will have their access restored immediately. I don't seek conflict with the order, only accountability. From the back of the crowd, a voice called out, "What about security against you-know-who? The order was protecting us." Harry nodded, having anticipated this concern. Security remains a priority. I'm establishing a new protection force comprised of independent security specialists with no political affiliations. They will coordinate with ministry orders when appropriate, but their primary loyalty will be to the safety of Diagon Alley and its people, not to any faction's agenda. This seemed to reassure many in the crowd, though skeptical murmurs persisted. I know you have questions and concerns, Harry acknowledged. In the coming days, I'll meet with each of you individually to discuss your specific situations. For now, I ask for your patience as we transition to a more equitable system. As Harry concluded his remarks, the crowd broke into smaller discussions, with opinions clearly divided. Some approached him immediately with concerns or expressions of support, while others held back, watching cautiously. Among the first to reach him was George Weasley, looking uncharacteristically serious. Fred was noticeably absent. Harry, George said quietly, we need to talk about the shop. Harry nodded, having expected this conversation. Let's go inside Gringotts where it's quieter. Once they were seated in a private consultation room, George got straight to the point. We didn't know, Harry. About the lease arrangement, I mean. Dumbledore told us you'd authorized him to waive our rent as an extension of your tournament winnings investment. We would never have accepted it if we'd known you weren't informed. Harry studied his friend's face, seeing genuine distress there. I believe you, George. That's why the shop isn't affected by the ban, you and Fred weren't knowing participants in the deception. George slumped in relief. Thank you. But what happens now? With our lease, I mean. You'll pay fair market rent like everyone else, Harry said simply. But I'm honoring your investment agreement, the startup capital I provided entitles me to a small percentage of profits, nothing more. That's more than fair, George agreed quickly. And, what about Mum and Dad? And the others? Harry's expression hardened slightly. That depends on them. If they acknowledge what they did and make it right, the ban will be lifted. If they continue to insist they were justified in keeping me ignorant while profiting from my family's assets, then it remains in place. George nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, I think Dad genuinely believed you knew about the ownership but not the details. Mum. I'm not sure. But they're both devastated about being banned. Then perhaps they'll be the first to seek reconciliation, Harry suggested. The door is open, George. It's up to them to walk through it. After George left, Harry spent hours meeting with shop owners, addressing concerns, and beginning the process of reviewing lease agreements. By evening, he had a clearer picture of how Dumbledore had shaped Diagon Alley over the years, systematically favoring businesses aligned with his philosophy while subtly constraining those with different magical perspectives. As twilight fell, Harry found himself drawn to the north end of the alley, where Madame Greengrass's apothecary was located. He still had questions about the magical innovation consortium she'd mentioned, and she seemed to possess knowledge about Diagon Alley's history that could prove valuable. The shop was open, soft light spilling from its windows onto the cobblestones. Inside, Madame Greengrass was carefully decanting a shimmering potion into crystal vials. Mr. Potter, she greeted him without looking up. I was wondering when you might visit. Your address to the community was quite impressive. Thank you, Harry said, watching as she completed her task with practiced precision. I've decided to re-establish the magical innovation consortium you told me about. Now she did look up, her eyes gleaming with interest. Indeed. That's unexpected. And potentially quite significant. You were a researcher there, Harry recalled. Would you be interested in helping to rebuild it? Madame Greengrass carefully sealed the last vial before responding. I would, though you should be aware of the potential consequences. Dumbledore didn't shut down the consortium on a whim. He genuinely believed certain magical research paths were too dangerous to pursue. Like the research into blood protections that might have kept me from the Dursleys? Harry asked pointedly. Among other things, she acknowledged. The consortium explored all branches of magic without the artificial light versus dark distinction that has dominated magical education in recent centuries. We studied family magic, blood rituals, soul magic, communal enchantments, areas that Dumbledore and his followers considered politically problematic. Why? What was he afraid of? Madame Greengrass considered her answer carefully. Albus Dumbledore believed in centralized authority, the Ministry, Hogwarts, the Wizengamot, and ultimately himself as the arbiter of acceptable magic. The consortium represented an alternative approach, distributed magical knowledge, family-based traditions, and innovative combinations of magical practices that couldn't easily be classified or controlled. She began arranging the vials in a wooden case as she continued. In simple terms, Mr. Potter, Dumbledore feared magical diversity because it challenged his vision of how magic should be practiced and regulated. Harry absorbed this, connecting it to patterns he'd observed in his Hogwarts education. So it wasn't really about dark magic at all. Not in the way most people understand that term, she confirmed. It was about control. Magic that empowers families, small communities, or individuals to protect themselves independently threatens those who believe protection should come from centralized authorities. This perspective shifted Harry's understanding of the wizarding world in fundamental ways. It wasn't simply a conflict between light and dark, but between different philosophies about how magic should be structured and shared. I want to see where the consortium was located, he decided suddenly. Is the building still there? It is, though it's been divided into several smaller shops now. I can show you. They left the apothecary and walked deeper into the north end of Diagon Alley, eventually turning into a narrow side street Harry had never noticed before. Here, the architecture was older, with buildings that leaned together overhead, nearly touching in places. This is one of the oldest parts of the district, Madame Greengrass explained. Dating back to the original settlement, before the main thoroughfare was established. She stopped before a large stone building with multiple storefronts at street level. This was the consortium. Now it houses a second-hand book shop, a magical instrument repair business, and several other small enterprises. Harry studied the building, feeling a strange resonance in the magical connection he developed with Diagon Alley. This place was important somehow, not just historically, but magically. There's something here, he murmured, placing his hand against the stone wall. Something hidden. Madame Greengrass watched him with keen interest. The founding magic responds to you more strongly than I anticipated. Yes, Mr. Potter, there is indeed something hidden here, something Dumbledore believed he had sealed away permanently. As Harry's palm pressed against the cool stone, he felt a pulse of magic respond to his touch. Golden light began to trace the outline of a doorway where none had been visible before, an archway inscribed with runes similar to those he'd seen on the ward stone beneath Gringotts. The original entrance, Madame Greengrass breathed. Sealed for decades, until now. The stone within the glowing outline shimmered and became transparent, revealing a vast space beyond, a circular chamber with a domed ceiling, ringed with bookshelves and work tables. Though clearly long abandoned, it appeared untouched, as if the researchers had simply stepped out momentarily, expecting to return. How is this possible? Harry asked, amazed. The building was divided into shops. In the physical dimension, yes, she explained. But the consortium's main research hall exists in a magically expanded space anchored to this location but not entirely within it. When Dumbledore shut down the consortium, he sealed the entrance but couldn't destroy the space itself, it was too deeply integrated with the founding magic of Diagon Alley. Harry stepped through the archway, feeling a subtle shift as he entered the hidden chamber. The air smelled of old parchment and magical ingredients, preserved by whatever enchantment had sealed the room. This is extraordinary, he said, turning slowly to take in the space. Ancient tomes lined the walls, artifacts rested on shelves, and research notes still lay open on tables, quills beside them as if their writers had just stepped away. The heart of magical innovation in Britain, Madame Greengrass said, following him inside. Preserved exactly as it was when Dumbledore ordered it closed. As Harry moved deeper into the chamber, he noticed a pedestal at its center, holding what appeared to be a large crystal embedded in a bronze housing. The crystal pulsed with a soft, blue light that intensified as he approached. "What is this?" he asked. "The consortium's greatest project," she replied reverently. "A magical archive containing centuries of research, spell developments, potion innovations, theoretical frameworks for types of magic that have been systematically excluded from Hogwarts curriculum." Harry reached toward the crystal, then hesitated. "Is it safe to touch?" "For you?" "Yes. The archive recognizes the blood of the founding families. It was created by researchers working under the protection of your ancestors, Mr. Potter." When Harry's fingers made contact with the crystal, a flood of information rushed into his mind, not specific knowledge, but an awareness of what the archive contained: healing magic that drew on family bonds, protective enchantments tied to blood and freely given sacrifice, community-based warding techniques that grew stronger with each participating family, theoretical frameworks for understanding magic that had nothing to do with the simplified light/dark dichotomy taught at Hogwarts. This is what Dumbledore feared, Harry realized, withdrawing his hand. Not dark magic, but alternative approaches that didn't require centralized control. "Precisely," confirmed a new voice from the entrance. Harry turned to find Perenelle Flammel standing in the archway, her ageless eyes taking in the chamber with what looked like nostalgia. "Mrs. Flammel," he acknowledged. "You were involved with the consortium too?" "I was one of its founders, Mr. Potter," she replied, stepping into the room. "Long before Dumbledore was born. Nicholas and I established it as a place where magical knowledge could be pursued free from the political constraints that were beginning to shape formal magical education." She approached, studying him thoughtfully. "You've done more in 2 days than I expected possible. Claiming your inheritance, enacting the ban, reopening the consortium, the founding magic has recognized you completely. You've been waiting for this," Harry realized. "That's why you stayed after Nicholas passed away." Perenelle nodded. "There are aspects of your inheritance that go beyond property deeds and business leases, Mr. Potter. Deeper responsibilities connected to the founding magic itself." "What kind of responsibilities?" Before she could answer, a loud explosion rocked the building, sending dust cascading from the domed ceiling. "What was that?" Harry demanded, drawing his wand. Madame Greengrass moved swiftly to a small viewing portal near the entrance. "Order members," she reported tersely. "Led by Moody. They appear to be attempting to break the ban by force." Harry's jaw clenched. "How?" "The magic should prevent them from entering any shop." "They're not targeting a shop," Perenelle explained, joining Greengrass at the portal. "They're attacking the ward anchors beneath the street, trying to disrupt the founding magic itself." Another explosion shook the building, closer this time. "They don't know what they're doing," Perenelle continued, her voice tight with concern. "The wards are integrated with Diagon Alley's structural magic. Damaging them could destabilize the entire district." Harry moved to the portal to see for himself. In the street below, Moody, Lupin, Shacklebolt, and several other Order members had removed a section of cobblestones, exposing one of the ward anchor points Harry had discovered earlier, a metal disc bearing the Deathly Hallows symbol. Moody was directing concentrated spell fire at it while the others maintained a protective perimeter. "I need to stop them," Harry decided immediately. "Before they cause serious damage." "Wait," Perenelle cautioned, placing a hand on his arm. "There's something you need first." She turned to Madame Greengrass. "Adelia, the repository." Greengrass nodded and hurried to a cabinet near the back of the chamber, returning with a slim wooden box that she handed to Perenelle. "What I told you about responsibilities beyond property rights wasn't merely philosophical, Mr. Potter," Perenelle explained as another explosion rattled the windows. "As heir to the Peveril line, you've inherited guardianship of the founding magic itself. This will help you claim that aspect of your legacy." She opened the box to reveal a wand unlike any Harry had seen, similar to the one Ollivander had shown him, but even more distinctive, with a wood grain that seemed to flow like liquid shadow and a handle inscribed with the now familiar triangle circle line symbol. "This is the original," Perenelle said quietly. "Not Death's creation of legend, but Ignotus Peveril's masterwork. A focus for the founding magic of Diagon Alley, passed down through your family line until it was entrusted to the consortium for safekeeping." Harry stared at the wand, feeling its magic calling to him. "Ollivander showed me something similar." "A replica," Perenelle confirmed. "Created as a decoy after attempts were made to steal the original. This wand connects directly to the ward network. With it, you can repair what they're damaging, and enforce your ban more completely if necessary." Another, more violent explosion shook the building, sending cracks spreading across one wall. "They're getting closer to the main ward stone," Greengrass warned. "We don't have much time." Harry reached for the wand, hesitating just before his fingers made contact. "Will this affect my connection to my Phoenix wand?" "No," Perenelle assured him. "This is not a replacement, but a complement, a specialized tool for working with the founding magic. Your original wand remains yours." Harry grasped the wand, and immediately felt a surge of power unlike anything he'd experienced before, not the warm familiarity of his Phoenix wand, but a deeper, more primal connection to the very stones of Diagon Alley. The founding magic that had recognized him during the inheritance ritual now flowed through him more completely, showing him the entire network of wards, anchors, and protective enchantments that maintained the district. He could see the damage Moody and the others were causing, not just physical destruction, but tears in the magical fabric that had protected Diagon Alley for centuries. "I need to get down there," he said, his voice resonating with new authority. "This way," Greengrass urged, leading them to a spiral staircase hidden behind a bookshelf. They descended rapidly, emerging from a concealed door at street level just as another explosion sent cobblestones flying. A small crowd had gathered at a safe distance, watching in alarm as the Order members continued their assault on the ward anchor. Harry strode forward, the Peveril wand held confidently at his side. He could feel the magic responding to his approach, the very ground beneath his feet humming with recognition. "Enough," he called out, his voice magically amplified without any conscious spell. The Order members turned in surprise, wands raised defensively. Moody stood at the center of the group, his magical eye whirling wildly as it focused on Harry, and then on the wand in his hand. "Potter," he growled. "This doesn't concern you. We're conducting necessary security operations that your ban has interrupted. By destroying the protective wards of Diagon Alley." Harry challenged, stepping closer. "You're endangering everyone here." "We're trying to fix what you broke," Lupin interjected, looking distressed. "Harry, the ban is preventing critical Order activities. People could die if we can't access our supply chains and communication points." "You had options," Harry replied coldly. "I offered terms for lifting the ban. Instead, you chose to attack my property and endanger innocent people." "We don't have time for your childish conditions," Moody snapped. "There's a war on, boy. Your hurt feelings don't take precedence over fighting Voldemort." Harry's patience, already thin, finally snapped. "This isn't about hurt feelings, Moody. It's about years of manipulation and lies. It's about the Order using my family's assets while keeping me ignorant and impoverished. It's about Dumbledore suppressing magical research that might have given me a better childhood, all to maintain his control over my life." The last accusation caused Lupin to flinch visibly. "You don't know what you're talking about," Moody insisted, though with less certainty. "Everything was done according to plan, for the greater good." "Dumbledore's greater good," Harry countered. "Not mine. Not my family's. And I'm done with it." He raised the Peveril wand. "This ends now. Either accept my terms for reconciliation, or leave Diagon Alley immediately." Moody's face contorted with fury. "You think you can threaten us, boy? We're trying to save lives while you play landlord." "I'm not threatening," Harry said quietly. "I'm giving you a choice. The same choice I offered from the beginning. Acknowledge what you did, make restitution, and the ban will be lifted. For a moment, it seemed Moody might actually consider the offer. Then his expression hardened again. We don't have time for this. Shacklebolt, Lupin, continue with the operation. We'll deal with Potter's tantrum later. As the Order members turned back toward the exposed ward anchor, Harry felt the Peveril wand grow warm in his hand, responding to his resolve. Without conscious thought, he found himself moving through a complex wand pattern he'd never learned but somehow knew instinctively. Praesidium Revelio, he intoned, the words rising from somewhere deep within his connection to the founding magic. Golden light erupted from the wand, spreading outward in a rapidly expanding dome that encompassed the entire visible area. Where it passed, the hidden ward anchors buried beneath the cobblestones began to glow, revealing the intricate pattern that Harry had glimpsed earlier, a vast, complex web of protective magic with the central ward stone at its heart. The gathered crowd gasped at the display, many backing away in awe or fear. The Order members froze, suddenly able to see the full extent of what they'd been tampering with. This is the founding magic of Diagon Alley, Harry explained, his voice carrying easily through the now silent street. Laid down by my ancestors and the other founding families. It's not just about property rights or business leases, it's about protection for everyone who lives and works here. He turned to address the onlookers as well as the Order members. This magic has guarded Diagon Alley through wars, plagues, and political upheavals for centuries. It doesn't care about light or dark, ministry or order, it exists to preserve this place as a sanctuary for all magical people, regardless of faction or philosophy. Harry could feel the connection strengthening as he spoke, the magic responding to his acknowledgement of its purpose. The damaged areas of the ward network began to heal themselves, golden light flowing to repair the tears caused by the Order's attack. By trying to break the ban, you've damaged protections that keep everyone safe, he continued, focusing on Moody again. Is that really what the Order of the Phoenix has become? So desperate to maintain control that you'd endanger the very people you claim to protect? Lupin looked shaken. Harry, we didn't know. Moody said we were just disrupting the ban, not the protective wards. They're connected, Harry explained. The ban works through the same founding magic that protects Diagon Alley. You can't attack one without damaging the other. Moody's magical eye darted between the glowing ward anchors, his expression conflicted. For the first time, uncertainty showed on his scarred face. How do you know all this? He demanded. Who's been feeding you information? The magic itself, Harry replied simply. When I claimed my inheritance, it recognized me as the rightful guardian, not just the property owner. Everything that's happening now, the ban, the revealed wards, even this wand, is part of that inheritance. Shacklebolt stepped forward, lowering his wand. Harry, we need to discuss this rationally. Whatever grievances you have against the Order, this conflict benefits only Voldemort. I agree, Harry said, surprising the Auror. That's why I offered terms for reconciliation from the beginning. The ban isn't permanent unless you choose to make it so. What exactly do you want from us? Lupin asked quietly. Acknowledgement of what was done to me. Full disclosure of how my family's assets were used. And restitution where appropriate. Harry met Lupin's gaze directly. No more secrets, no more, for your own good. I want the truth, all of it. A tense silence fell as the Order members exchanged glances. The crowd watched, waiting to see how this confrontation would resolve. Finally, unexpectedly, it was Moody who broke the impasse. Albus made mistakes, he said gruffly, the admission clearly difficult for him. We all did. Following his lead without questioning, without considering what it meant for you. Harry hadn't expected Moody to be the first to yield. Go on. Moody's magical eye fixed on Harry while his normal one stared into middle distance, as if seeing the past. The stewardship arrangement was supposed to be temporary, just until you were old enough to manage the inheritance properly. But Albus, he kept finding reasons to extend it. First because of your age, then because of Voldemort's return, always another reason why, now wasn't the time, to tell you everything. And the order funding? Harry pressed. The preferential leases? The suppression of research that might have helped me? War requires resources, Moody said defensively, but then sighed. But yes, we should have told you once you returned to the wizarding world. Should have prepared you to take over when you came of age, not kept you in the dark. It wasn't a complete acknowledgement, but it was a start. Harry could see the genuine struggle on the old Auror's face, decades of loyalty to Dumbledore battling with the undeniable reality of what had been done. I can provide full financial records, Shacklebolt offered. I kept copies of all Order expenditures, including those drawn from the Potter accounts. You deserve to know how the money was used. Lupin stepped forward, his expression pained. Harry, the monthly stipend. I accepted it believing it was what James and Lily would have wanted, that they had arranged it before they died. When I learned it came from Dumbledore's stewardship of your inheritance. He swallowed hard. I should have told you. Should have questioned it. I'm sorry. One by one, the Order members present acknowledged their parts in the deception, some reluctantly, others with genuine remorse. As each spoke, Harry felt the founding magic respond, the band subtly adjusting to exempt those who had made honest amends. When the last had finished, Harry raised the Peveril wand again. I accept your acknowledgments as a first step toward reconciliation. The ban is lifted for those who have spoken today, conditional on the promised financial disclosures and continued honesty going forward. He drew a complex pattern in the air, and the golden light of the ward network pulsed once more before fading back to invisibility. The damaged ward anchor repaired itself completely, the cobblestones shifting back into place over it. This doesn't mean I trust the Order again, Harry clarified. That will take time and actions, not just words. But it does mean we can begin working toward a new arrangement, one based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. Moody nodded stiffly, his pride clearly wounded but his practical nature asserting itself. Fair enough. What about other Order members not present today? The same terms apply, Harry said. Acknowledge, disclose, make restitution where appropriate. When they do, the ban will lift for them as well. With the immediate crisis resolved, the crowd began to disperse, though many lingered to stare at Harry with new expressions of awe or speculation. The confrontation had demonstrated not just his legal ownership of Diagon Alley, but his magical connection to the district in a way few had witnessed before. As the Order members departed, Lupin hung back, clearly wanting to speak with Harry privately. That wand, he said quietly when the others had gone. James mentioned something once, about a family heirloom connected to Diagon Alley. I never understood what he meant until now. Harry looked down at the Peveril wand, still thrumming with power in his hand. It's part of my inheritance. One that Dumbledore apparently didn't want me to know about either. Harry, I can't defend everything Albus did, Lupin said earnestly. But please understand, he genuinely believed he was protecting you. The responsibility of the founding magic, it's not just power, but a tremendous burden. A burden I should have been prepared for, Harry pointed out. Instead, I was thrown into it with no warning, no knowledge, no guidance. Lupin nodded sadly. You're right. We failed you, all of us. I hope it's not too late to make amends. Harry studied his father's old friend, seeing the genuine regret in his eyes. It's not too late, Remus. But things can't go back to the way they were. Too much has changed. I understand, Lupin said, turning to go. Then he paused. Your father would be proud, you know. The way you handled this, firm but fair, offering reconciliation rather than just punishment. That's pure James, with a healthy dose of Lily's compassion. After Lupin left, Harry returned to where Perenelle and Madame Greengrass waited near the entrance to the hidden consortium chamber. That was well done, Perenelle said approvingly. You wielded both authority and mercy, the mark of a true guardian. It's just the beginning, Harry replied, still processing everything that had happened. There's so much more I need to learn about this inheritance, about the founding magic and my responsibilities to it. And you will, Perenelle assured him. That's why I remained after Nicholas passed on, to help guide the next guardian when they emerged. Harry looked back at the now restored street, where shop owners were cautiously returning to their businesses after the dramatic confrontation. What happens now? With Voldemort, the Ministry, everything? That largely depends on you, Perenelle replied. Diagon Alley has always been more than just a shopping district. In times of crisis, it can be a sanctuary, a neutral ground where magical people of all backgrounds can find protection and community. Madame Greengrass nodded in agreement. The founding families established this place as an alternative to ministry control, a self-governing magical community based on different principles. What principles? Harry asked. Mutual aid rather than centralized authority, Perenelle explained. Protection based on shared magical effort rather than imposed regulations. Innovation through collaboration across traditional boundaries. Harry considered this vision against the fractured, faction-driven wizarding world he had experienced, the Ministry's bureaucracy and corruption, Dumbledore's well-intentioned but ultimately controlling approach, the pure-blood elitism that had given rise to Voldemort. I want to learn more, he decided. About the original purpose of Diagon Alley, about the founding magic, about everything my family was meant to protect. Then let us begin, Perenelle said, gesturing toward the consortium's entrance. The archives contain generations of knowledge awaiting rediscovery. And with the founding magic awakening in response to your claim, there are aspects of Diagon Alley itself yet to be revealed. Over the following weeks, Harry immersed himself in his new responsibilities while continuing to learn about his inheritance. The Magical Innovation Consortium was officially re-established, with Madame Greengrass serving as its interim director while researchers who had been scattered after its closure began to return. The Order of the Phoenix, chastened by the confrontation and the public revelation of their deception, underwent its own transformation. With Dumbledore gone and many of its senior members forced to reconcile with Harry to regain access to Diagon Alley, the organization gradually shifted from blind loyalty to Dumbledore's methods toward a more transparent, collaborative approach. The Ministry, having failed to challenge Harry's ownership legally, attempted various political maneuvers to regain influence over Diagon Alley. But with the founding magic actively responding to Harry's guardianship, their efforts gained little traction. Eventually, Minister Scrimgeour proposed a formal treaty acknowledging Diagon Alley's special status while establishing protocols for cooperation on security matters. Perhaps most significantly, Harry implemented a new governance system for the district, a council comprising representatives from various types of businesses, residents, and magical traditions. This council, which included former Order members like Lupin alongside shop owners from both Diagon and Nocturne Alleys, provided balanced guidance while acknowledging Harry's ultimate authority as guardian. Under this new arrangement, Diagon Alley began to evolve. The artificial boundary between respectable businesses and those relegated to Nocturne Alley gradually dissolved, replaced by a more organic organization based on complementary magical practices rather than light/dark distinctions. The district became a true marketplace of magical ideas, where innovation flourished alongside tradition. 3 months after claiming his inheritance, Harry stood on the balcony of what had once been the Magical Innovation Consortium's main building, now restored as the administrative center of Diagon Alley. From this vantage point, he could see the entire district stretching out before him, alive with activity as the magical community adapted to the new reality. Perenelle joined him, looking pleased with the transformation. You've accomplished more in 3 months than I dared hope possible in a year. Harry smiled, though his expression remained thoughtful. There's still so much to do. Voldemort hasn't given up, he's just regrouping, looking for new vulnerabilities. True, she acknowledged. But you've created something precious here, a haven where magical people can come together despite their differences. That unity is what Voldemort fears most. Harry nodded, feeling the reassuring presence of both his Phoenix wand and the Peveril wand, now comfortably carried in a special dual holster. Each represented a different aspect of his identity, his role in the wider conflict against Voldemort, and his responsibility as guardian of Diagon Alley. "I never expected any of this," he admitted. "When I first learned about my inheritance, I was just angry about being kept in the dark for so long. I wanted justice, maybe even revenge. And now?" Harry gazed out over the district, his district, watching as people from all magical backgrounds mingled freely in the afternoon sunlight. "Now I understand what my family was protecting all these centuries. Not just property or businesses, but a vision of what magical society could be. Something worth preserving and building upon." Below, he could see George and Fred Weasley demonstrating a new product outside their shop, drawing laughter from a mixed crowd of children and adults. Nearby, a researcher from the re-established consortium was deep in conversation with a shopkeeper from what had once been Nocturne Alley. Even Lupin was visible, now serving as liaison between Diagon Alley's security team and the Reformed Order. "Your parents would be proud," Perenelle said softly. "Not just of what you've done, but of who you've become in doing it." Harry nodded, feeling a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. The anger that had driven his initial actions had transformed into something more constructive, a determination to build something better than what had come before. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cobblestones, Harry felt the founding magic humming contentedly through his connection to the district. Diagon Alley was healing, growing stronger as its original purpose was remembered and honored. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Voldemort, the Ministry, or threats yet unknown, Harry faced them not as the boy who lived or Dumbledore's reluctant protégé, but as the guardian of Diagon Alley, heir to the Peverell legacy, and architect of a new vision for magical Britain. The inheritance he had claimed in anger had become a gift beyond measure, not just of wealth or property, but of purpose and belonging. In reclaiming his family's legacy, Harry Potter had finally found his true place in the wizarding world. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.